following us. We welcome you to the third journey of this digital agriculture week organized by ICA. We greet you from San Jose, Costa Rica, from the headquarters, from ICA headquarters. Besides the ICA's team, we have 15 startups from 6 different countries, from Latin America and the Caribbean, and we have met this week. The idea is to discuss things that related to digitalization in agriculture. We had the first journey. In that first day, we interacted with the ministers and vice ministers from different countries in the Americas. Yesterday, we had several presentations given by reference from different parts of the world, responsible people, responsible parties of INRAP and other institutions from different parts of America. And today we're going to focus mainly in everything related to the entrepreneurship and the vision from production and technology. So without further ado, let me tell you that I have with me Carlos Vidal, a colleague that has been working with ICA from Argentina, and who is making important efforts to implement the AgTech network. And Carlos is helping me to facilitate and moderate this first part of the morning. So without further ado, I want to thank particularly the presence of Gustavo Oropato and Blas Cristaldo. To begin with, let me give the floor to Gustavo. Gustavo is an agricultural producer, well known in Argentina, and not only in Argentina, with many activities in the agricultural sector in several countries of the region. And he has always been thinking about technology and the techniques as for the agricultural and rural development. So we really value having his view today in the framework of this week of digital agriculture. Thank you, Gustavo, for being here. On behalf of ICA, you have the floor. Okay, thank you for the invitation to ICA and to you, and for giving me this time to exchange ideas and to talk a little bit about what we have been seeing for several years now, and looking forward. I have prepared a short presentation and that I would like to share with you. I understand that right now you should be seeing this. Not much better now. So basically, I want to say some things we already know, but because they have been mentioned for a while. Today, agricultural production requires a convergence in technologies, quite new technologies that are in development process. Precision agriculture is what is behind this type of agriculture is electronics, metal mechanics, satellite for education, and besides the direct planting, we have many of these technologies. Behind the seeds ready to use, we have biotechnology, microbiology, and chemistry, and everything related to the protection of the crops. We also have nanotechnology. I mean, all this improves the plants and facilitates the productive process to grow vegetables that will transform the carbon dioxide and water on a series of products that are more and more, and that are not only food or nutrients, but they are also medicines, bioplastics, textile products, or paper, construction, enzymes, energy, and much more. This is equivalent to say that plants or vegetables behave as industrial plants. And these industrial plants that are green use sun energy, renewable energy through their solar panels, which are the leaves. They do not issue carbon dioxide, they absorb it. And they are factories distributed all over rural areas all over the world. I mean, there is a sort of a new focus in the new green industrialism, which are not the large cities, but that's is the field. The field is the headquarters of a new green industrial revolution, cleaner for the reasons I already mentioned, and with amazing scopes. The technological convergence process, basic one, deepens and speeds up the process and what many people used to call bioeconomy, others name it differently, but the bioeconomy tries to understand this new process that has not occurred before. Okay. In biotechnology, there are concrete progress about resistance or tolerance to salinity and droughts. These pictures are a little bit old, but in Argentina, Bioceres just launched these products and they were approved in Chile and in other countries of the world. Here, uh, some friends told me in the past that sometimes they travel in the sea and they took samples from the ocean. You know, the ocean is one of the places with the biggest biodiversity, first on the land and then and after that in the ocean. And they explore and they found living organisms in different deepness. And in this case, they compete with algae and they synthesize in the dark. So it means they are efficient living beings in the use of light. And probably the gene these living beings have maybe applied to agriculture, creating a sort of super plant with a very high photosynthetic efficiency. Another point is related to the precision agriculture and the interactive model of agriculture, which is the convergency, but it is also the systematization of process of information capture and information processing through the ring maps, satellite information, the creation of environmental and prescriptions for these environments. The use of digital technology in the harvesters and planters to plant with this precision. So the weed treatment is also a treatment of precision with using not only chemicals but also physical products to control insects and weeds and others. All these processes are progressing. We have progressed a lot, but we need to do more to simplify the model in order to have greater efficiency. The use of the digital information or the digitalization to have access in time and form through mobile devices and the web, of course, but the mobile devices revolves all this. We can have access to the information wherever we are, located physically and at the time we want. And this process generates an access to information and to management capacity as never saw before. The example is from Awaka, which is a digital app that we developed in my company that allows to provide customized treatment to customers. So far, we were educated on segmented treatment for customers, but here segmentation is one-on-one. So we may start treating each customer in a personal manner with the particularities of each of everybody. The scope of this revolution goes beyond traditional agriculture and new spaces of production emerge. Those are hydroponic crops pictures, so without soil. We do not need the soil anymore to produce. There are crops on the land, but on the roof, what we call urban agriculture. So there are algae crops. We can do this with salty water. We can do this on the sea, at the sea level. So the sea becomes a plantation place, a photosynthetic surface. And we have these green constructions of the new architecture. The green is just the algae. They are living in crops that are useful for to generate designs, challenging designs, but also, we can get protein, oil, products from algae. So, I mean, these industrial plants not only occur at the field level, as we know, but they can also occur in other physical places. There is a case of great interest for me in the lab of an American university. We found a seeds injector that, I mean, they can plant seeds with a huge speed without the need of the soil. And these injectors with precision agriculture, the GPS, made robots to work, and they take these injectors and they move in the physical space guided by GPS mechanisms. So they are sort of agro robots. They run with lithium batteries that are charged with solar or wind power. And this precision agriculture takes data from satellite and drones. In this same university, I was looking at many works that begin with the idea on how to capture nitrogen from air. We know that 70% of air is nitrogen, that we could capture this nitrogen without any logistic cost. So the cost of nitrogen will be cheaper. It is important to see in the middle of this war. So that we could use much more nitrogen, and that will change the curves of ratio input product output, and we will require another genetic adapter to a better use of nitrogen. The productivities will increase much more, and nowadays productivities increase 1.5% annually. So the increase of productivity will be substantial. 100, 200% more productivity. These robots will be made with 3D printers, and they will use these seeds ready to use, as I mentioned at the beginning in my presentation. And the seeds ready to use integrate biotechnology, microbiology, biostimulants. These robots and this new agriculture that integrates different technology is a cheaper and more sustainable agriculture, because robots, we do not need tractors or big machines, so it is not necessary to disassemble for agriculture. So we could have an agriculture in the middle of the forest or the mountains without altering the structure. So if we add to all this that there are initiatives of insect control and weeds with injectors, physical control, and we add the organization of the transport, and we add everything related to artificial intelligence, fintech, e-commerce, marketplace, and all that, we will agree in the fact that in line with the situation and these technologies, ideas, convergences will make the field in the future will be completely different, not only for large extensions and producers, but also to plant and the valleys and the seas in our Latin America and the world, and to create ecosystems, closed ecosystems, self-managed from the energy point of view, and also without any impact in issuance carbon dioxide. This technological matter requires innovations in the way to get organized. The company in itself is not sufficient. We need ecosystems of companies and value chains with outsourcing networks and clusters, management practices. So we need to check the institutional aspect, because institutions were conceived for other type of scenarios. And the big question is what for? So the purpose of this transformation which are wonderful, but very often is hard to digest by society. I believe that there is an ethical purpose, which is the creation of conditions for this human dignity. There is so the part of the right of the law that has deals with creating matters for institutions. There is a political issue related to find agreements and to rule and promote and the economy to create and distribute useful services and goods. So when we put the politics in front of everything, we are getting wrong. We need an economy that is somehow guided by policy guided by law and law within an ethical framework. Okay, within this situation, there are trends that appear. I call them towards a society of care, as many witnesses. One from Pope Francis, when he talked about Fratelli Tutti, he talks about care. But before him, there were other thinkers and philosophers that talk about this topic. We need a global coordination with the tension between the states, national and global forms of government. We see the two things are challenged. We need changes in the consumption habits, no matter with more localization and traceability. We need an environment on the top of the agenda. This appears more and more, and somehow they start conditioning the operation of the economy, a system that integrates more. I call this the capitalism of the 21st century. And on a conversation with Marina Silva some years ago, we said that we need to change the word capitalism to call it sustainabilism, because it's something different, where we need to revise the operation of the state, not only the size, but also the operation, new organizations with a new entrepreneurship, new workers, the works of knowledge, the workers of knowledge, those who want to be owners, entrepreneur workers, and so on. There is a tension that is an increasing tension because there is more sovereignty of the networks, but at the same time, function to control even more. Probably this tension between control and autonomy is not going to be solved. Tensions are not to be solved, but to manage. And a tension between democracy and hierarchies with new political orders and a state with quality bureaucracy. Scientists, data analysts. So there are more and more data analysts. Everything I mentioned before about the future is linked to data scientists and data analysts. I am quite positive with the process. I believe the process will save the planet. This technological convergence, which is positive, there is a deep and renewed commitment with the environment, much more modern organizations, creating ecosystems, that there are new institutions where democracy is debated, market agreements, the capitalism of the 21st century, new leaderships that appear from the crisis. And something very important is how, as society, we believe we're going to include and integrate the displaced people from the system. Those were many, were a lot, they are still a lot, through different mechanisms of integration. I would like to end here with my presentation, and let me see if I can go back. So were you able to hear me? Perfect. Hi, Gustavo. It is a great pleasure to listen to you. I believe it has been the same way for all of us. The statement you have made at the micro level and also at the level of the big challenges that exist in the sector, in the sectoral ecosystem, but also AgTech ecosystem we are working on nowadays has been amazing. I was listening to the ethics, law, economy, and policy, politics, and economy that are part of the debate we have been having here. So I really celebrate your presentation. On the other hand, I would like to propose the participants. I would like to ask you if you have questions. I got some of them, but if you want to ask a question, this is the time to do it. Go ahead, Ramiro. Good morning, Gustavo. A pleasure to have you here with us. There are 15 entrepreneurs here with the desire to do many things. Many of the things and solutions that you mentioned in your presentation. And I'd like to know if you can make a reflection about the role that we can play in developing all these solutions that you mentioned, or if you believe that the development is going to be led by the big companies. No. How are you? Pleasure to greet you as well as to the rest of your colleagues and entrepreneurs. It's much more probable that this process will be led by entrepreneurs like you and not the large companies. They have more inconvenience to generate innovation processes. They are more bureaucratic, slower. They have a government mechanisms that are much more structured and less flexible in a world that really requires flexibility and capacity for adaptation. There is a scientist in Harvard that studies the organizations, Scarway, and he said that we do not need to use the concept of strategy anymore. We need to strategize. I mean, as an ongoing attitude of rethinking a strategy. And you entrepreneurs, you have that. Probably entrepreneurs like you will do it faster and better, and you will you will turn into mega companies that you're going to be bureaucratized someday. So, if you do not pay attention to this, the possibility of appearance of other entrepreneurs, I believe that the process of creation and structuring is positive for society. The problem is that society always prefers to protect more than encouraging more. So we need to go to a society, to a state that makes the creation to be higher than destruction, better than destruction. And this can be done focusing on creation, facilitating and helping. I believe ICA plays a core role in supporting us this way. Thank you, Gustavo. My name is Ramiro Carretero from Agroconsultas, Argentina. Thanks for your answer. My pleasure, Ramiro. Thanks, Gustavo. Now, next question, Nicolas Santinelli from Shivot Solutions from Argentina. Thanks, Carlos. Gustavo, good morning. A pleasure to listen to you. My question is, so using your side of producer, how are you seeing the relationship between producers and startups? So what are the values in this relationship that are strong, that are well, and what are the improvement points that could speed up this digital transformation? Well, I believe that there is a low implementation of solutions that you present. The ones that you show are very interesting and amazing, but it is hard for producers to adapt them. This is closely related to the fact that normally we fall in love with our own idea and we think more about the importance of our idea instead of thinking on the practicality. So those are top down instead of bottom up. So we need to go to producers, we need to work with them to be the complexity, on the daily complexity of their producer that has many operational things to solve, and that needs these solutions to be in a click, simple and useful. I believe that the startups need to go through this test. on how to make things fast and useful. In general, when I provide my tutorship, when I was complicated to join it, to get to the second step, when I do not have an immediate response, we go back to the beginning. So let's think again how to do it. Thank you, Gustavo. Any other question for him? If not, thanks, Gustavo. We invite you to stay with us. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to hear to you. I'm sorry I have to leave, so big hug, Blas. Thank you, Gustavo. Okay, now, hi, Blas. Blas Cristaldo is the General Manager of EcoProd. EcoProd is the Federation of Cooperatives in Paraguay, second level entity quite relevant in this country with 34 cooperatives of production. So the idea is, as we did with Gustavo, to hear to the vision, to continue listening to the vision of their producer sector, and the one that Blas can give us from his organization is very important, considering the representation of the important cooperative sector. I believe all of us know about it in this Paraguayan Republic. Thank you, Blas, for being with us, and you have the floor.
Good morning. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be able to participate here today. I would like to refer to the process that we have been developing in relation to this digitization challenge for the services. We have a strength there that is precisely what Gustavo said, which is the connection with agricultural producers. Because in the basis of the cooperative system, family producers, let's say, and our idea is to accompany and strengthen competitiveness through time. In the guides that you submitted to prepare this participation, you spoke about the need of working on digital instruments or technological instruments on the day-to-day of producers. And here, we're going to quickly take a look at the process that has taken more than 15 years already, where we have been trying to accompany all these challenges under the understanding that competitiveness and sustainability of agricultural production depends much on being able to intelligently and adequately use these technologies at a level that producers, on one hand, find if its implementation feasible, and on the other hand, to also respond to the main types of problems that they face on their day to day. So, very quickly on the next slide, there is a summary of the structure of the different items or headings where we have been intervening in the Federation, everything related to technology and process digitalization. We have platforms that cover the agricultural sector. We have platforms to support meat producers. Also, we are working on quality assurance through digitalization of laboratory services. Basically, all agriculture or precision agriculture programs. We have already referred to that need, but basically we are integrating a series of disciplines that are related to agronomical engineering. It is related to IT, it is related to electronics, etc., to generate these solutions that are useful for producers. Also, obviously, there is a thread that is related to the sustainability of and also in the cooperative scope, as is the case of organizations of people that seek through self-management to overcome their situation from the economic standpoint. It's the management of the cooperative itself. It's a big challenge. Uh, the rural organizations have some constraints in management systems. Accountability for associates is key to keep trust and confidence in the organizations, and also training of adequate leaders to lead these organizations. Gustavo spoke about ethics in behavior, and I also believe that oftentimes the problems faced by our producers' organizations with our societies are moral problems in principle. And probably from there on, if eventually that can be improved, we will have other levels of perfecting in technical issues, academic issues, etc. But without the ethical basis and the basis of respect and dignity among the associates in an organization, hardly can it move forward. The next slide, we're going to be looking at this that we are talking about in a very general manner, but we're going to go through quickly so as not to uh, ex- exhaust the time that I have been assigned. The platform uh, of, um, of meat producers is also included in this presentation. All production channels are linked to the sustainable system. uh, through the support provided by these platforms to their producer, we always have that component of assessment of how the productive activity impacts on the environment and how being able to manage natural resources in an adequate manner that are used. Understanding that in our case, producers that are part of a cooperative are family producers that live in the farms. We practically do not have anyone who leases or who is absent from their farms. Practically all our associates are also small entrepreneurs, we might say. So what you see here in agriculture and the principle of what is this platform to support meat producers is going to repeat itself in the different chains that we're going to be looking at. For uh, beef, we can see here a list of what is the main source of income. There you can have the web page where you could also enter to take a tour through the different modules. In the lower part, we have the different modules that are in this platform. And as I was telling you, these are the topics that, regardless of the value chain that we have here, we group the main issues or challenges that producers need to manage. This is a list of the sagas, which is the system I had mentioned in the different scopes in which sustainability assessments are made. This is the part of quality assurance through lab controls, and also for dairy producers, the whole platform that's called Siscole, that's for dairy producers. And it's under the same logic as the previous one, interfaces with cell phones and others, so that data that are collected and processed by our technical experts also reach our producers through their phone devices. This will allow a second development stage, which will be fundamentally the introduction of data, which would be made by producers themselves through simplified platforms. What Gustavo was saying about simplicity is something that is proposed to seek always. We see here the control platform for productivity and others from the dairy farms. We have quality assurance. This is the part of the lab that is associated to dairy industry or to milk production. All these labs are also interconnected with technical areas in such a way that the results of the quality of raw materials also allow for differentiated payments to producers. And also they can guide technical assistance based on what is detected through these two mechanisms. These are mechanisms that are certified at the international level with ISO standards and others. The topic on traceability was mentioned by Gustavo. We began with this process for building the platforms for vegetable origin products of what would be the producer farm to the block one we might call of the development up to the cooperative where we consolidate the remittances of the producers. It's all packaged and we prepare lots for supermarkets and others. In phase two that begins this year, we would like to cover the circuit that goes from the cooperative to the supermarkets and from the supermarkets to end consumers. This is an example of this traceability model. Here we have the whole set of topics that when we spoke about precision agriculture and the interaction of what is this type of tools and methodologies with the capture of information of climate through FecoClima platform and the linkage of this with experimental centers where we obtain the different technological characterizations that can feed the different models for estimates and forecast of the evolution of the crops through the interaction that we find in the other two platforms. Here we have all that is related to soil care, fertilization, and others. And on this other hand, we have everything that's relevant for agriculture. We are also experimenting with remote sensors, precision drones, etc. The information that is collected from all these different sources, for example, the soil lab, that's what is available for the producer through platforms in which we can also save our development history and of evolution in the farm. Going back to climate, we have approximately 35 agrometeorological stations online with the National Meteorological System, exchanging information with them. This is agrometeorology. These are not the same, the ones that are used for national meteorological reports. This has different scope and different sensors that are very specific. And this is what I was already telling you. We also have experimental stations here in Iguazu, where we have this experimental station where we uh, do technological analysis for the main crops developed by our producers. Here we enter in the next part that I was telling you is very important for rural cooperatives. And we feel that for any entrepreneur related to management and transparency of administrative, accounting, financial aspects. This dimension is not too much into the map. We do not focus much on productive issues, but as we work with organizations, we need to keep the trust of producers in the organization. This goes through this filter of being able to be adequately accountable. The key here is to be administrative financial accounting. And there are other public entities that develop these to provide greater transparency to our systems. These are a few examples. And the information of leaders, that's also key, we said at the end, as aside from the whole organization, if that person has a given character or not, it influences the organizations. In rural organizations, these are big challenges that we have when we work in family agriculture and producers, everything that is related to the internal ethics to the organizations, and this is relevantly influencing the quality of leaders. That is why we also have an internal system for capacity building in that sense. And we're also supporting through digitalization of contents, which are sometimes from the public scope. And also, we have others that are related to those so called soft skills. This is a sample of the academic system that we have. And next, these are just examples of the types of these that we have. And then we enter into other types of developments, the that of economic resources that we call, which is expanded economic statistics, not only for cooperatives, but from the national productive system as a whole, and their relations of the country with other economic sectors like the European Union, Mercosur, the commercial balance, etc., and other related organizations like Leader Training Center and a Confederation of Cooperatives that we have also focused and promoted since several years ago as political representatives that bind cooperatives of different types, not just agricultural ones, in such a way that they have a greater lobby capacity at the public level. These are our internal systems that we have been developing for expeditiousness and for the utilization of efficiency in relation to the performance of our resources. There's a last slide here that shows internal management systems. What we wanted to present here to you is basically to respond to this, to see what is relevant in digitalization of services or in everything that is the technical part of these services. For us, this is key. It is part of the process that we have been developing. As I was saying, more than 15 years ago, in the Federation, we had a person in charge of maintenance of the machines, of computers, and others. Now we have a management unit for IT that interacts with veterinarians, agronomists, forest engineers, environmental engineers, and producers. The challenge goes through by joining efforts from several different fields so that these solutions and these instruments can reach producers in such a way that they are relevant, useful, and thus they are able to move forward in the inclusion of independent of producers, regardless of their size or of their chain, to and a value economy for them, for society, and for the units. Let's leave it here because I had also been asked to not go over 15 minutes in presentation. So I leave time here for additional comments or to add anything that you might require. Thank you, Blas. Uh, it's a pleasure to listen to you. I ratify what I was saying at the beginning, how relevant it is with us for us to have a vision of the cooperative system due to the close link with producers. And aside for that, I think that it has been fully demonstrated that we have a great possibility for digitalization to cross through the whole sector, as you said, from agricultural, livestock, beef, and many others that are exposed here due to the startups that we have in different countries, and also how digitalization goes through the comprehensive management of agricultural businesses. You have spoken about the transformation of leaders. It's amazing everything that you're doing. Congratulations in the first place. And I will express our thanks, and I would like to yield to the time for questions. Hugo Henrich from Origino, Argentina. Please, Diego, go ahead. Thank you, Blas. What you do is absolutely wonderful. You have spoken about a 15 years program and your own development of those tools. And within this scope, we have been convened and we have been participating as startups for the development of this startup model. Have you got any plan or any idea for interacting with third parties? Like, for example, the startups, are they in your roadmap? Yes. The phrase of our own development is something that needs to be taken within due context. And we need to outline it because it basically refers to the management and to the agenda that we would like to implement. The big secret here is that we need to develop our own vision. And based on that, we need to structure the stakeholders that will collaborate in the construction of that vision through time. And when we speak about our internal area, well, it's obviously, well, for people, I am not an administrative science specialist. I'm an economist. And when we speak about this, we need to have someone who can manage these relationships at a technical level with other service providers. Among digitalization, there are so many other activities that are subcontracted or outsourced. What we found in more startups, at least in Paraguay, is that we have a big orientation towards urban processes. Uh, the services for trade, etc. Our effort is to link more and more these developers with reality on the field. I don't know about other countries in Latin America, how will that work? But generally, there is a big lack of knowledge of activities that take place in the field. And veterinarians, agronomists, forest engineers, and others even work at separate levels from IT specialists and those as electronics specialists. So our cooperative has always tried to work with one single work panel on professionals of all these fields, these disciplines. When we speak about sensors for meteorological stations, we have outsourced the development of these sensors. We all these services that are related to, let's say, the design of the apps for producers, etc. So within the process that we have been building, what we would like to do on one hand is to have the producer to be the one who guides the development of innovation. Number two, professionals traditionally related to agriculture can interact with those who are not traditionally professions that are agribusiness related within an agenda that has been intelligently designed. Thank you, Blas, for your response. We have one second question. Let's move on to the last one because we are running short of time, unfortunately. Ramiro Carretero from Agroconsultas, Argentina. The floor is yours. Good morning, Blas. Such a pleasure. And thanks for your presentation. I have two questions. The first one is if producers in Paraguay have the obligation to be associated to FECOPRO, if the answer is no, what percentage of the producers have you got as associates? And the second question is, how do you assist technically in agronomical terms to your associates? Is it when they ask for a field visit, regular visits, or you do not have that kind of assistance? Well, the first topic, there is no obligation. Our federation is very flexible. We have 34 cooperatives, all are rural, but 17 are agricultural, and we have 17 that are rural credit. There is no obligation to be a partner in a cooperative, nor do we demand membership to a cooperative. What is important is that we have the freedom to provide services to individual producers or independent professionals, veterinarians who assist other producers who would like to use our tools by paying the fee for the subscription. It is all very flexible. There is no demand for access to be member of this or that. We can have next to a cooperative that demands as a legal institution a partner of any partner cooperative which does efforts on their own side, and we can have right next to them corporation that requires a platform for management. The same with lab services and others, and training also. We are very flexible there. The technical assistance at the level of cooperatives is uh, well said. We have a model that's strong, that still has components of the presence of the technical expert on the field. But this it causes a high technical cost. And this goes against our small scale producer organizations that do not have the same capabilities or the same possibility of paying for a service where, for example, a veterinarian goes twice a month. Distances are far away from each other. Sometimes we have uh, 150 to 100 kilometers between producer and producer. So the bet we're working on in our sector is a migration to the extensionism system, which would be a system that is much more remote, much more based on information and data that the producers themselves can feed in the platforms, and we can have a more remote assistance complemented by several instruments that are related to satellite images, drones, etc., which will reduce the cost. We think that if we work strongly on digitization of services, we're going to be able to include several small producers who lack technical support right now, because that's the most economic way. An app like this, we're charging $5 or $10 a month. That is an accessible cost, and the way they have access to a methodological tool that's well tested and continuous improvement support, because their participation is the other big component of quality of the services. We believe that regardless of having an unstable system, this is a system that is more and more expensive, and which is sometimes impossible for smaller producers who are not members of the cooperative. And through digitalization, I think that we solve all these aspects, and we thus permit inclusion of these producers that are not cooperative members within our value chains. And also based on the participation percentage, we speak here about agricultural producers. We meet the Pareto of 80-20. 20% of the producers represent 80% of the total production. That 20% that represents 80% of primary production in Paraguay is totally organized and in cooperatives. It's entrepreneurial from that perspective. It has a long-standing history of cooperativism, and it represents important consolidation for partners. We're talking about approximately 20,000 producers that we assist directly and through international cooperation. We work with 20,000 producers who are not members of cooperatives yet, but we assist them in different with different things. We do not work with individual producers, but through associativism. Thank you, Blas. In the interest of time, we are going to leave aside a few questions, but let me tell you that your presentation is very interesting. Thank you very much for your time from here from Costa Rica on behalf of ICA, the whole organization, and all those of us who participate in this week of Digital Agriculture in Action. We would like to thank you all, FICOPROD and Paraguay. We will keep in touch, and we will come back to talk about all these topics. So thank you very much. We are going to have uh, uh, continue in a while with the startups presentation and the agenda for the day. Thank you. Very well. Once this first presentation has been completed, let's begin with the presentation on startups for the day. We have today the presentation of Appi.ar and Beemore. from TheFarmerbox and Wiagro. So I'm going to offer the floor to Maria del Carmen Garcia to begin with the presentation from Argentina to present Appi.ar. Go ahead. Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ika, and also to the jury who has valued this tool. We will then begin with our presentation. Beemore is an apiculture consultants company. We have more than 30 years of experience in the apicultural sector. And in recent years, we have added to the team these agricultural integration of gender and youth. We have comprehensive solutions for small and medium-sized producers, and we consider that this tool accompanies them and helps them improve their production costs, and including an organization of their premises. In production, as I was telling you, we have experiences in field work, and in recent years, what we have done was to relate with the traditional agricultural sector, agricultural and livestock sector, to integrate bee production to livestock systems. We have done a pilot with Apri, a producer from Apri, taking advantage of our field in relation to pasture and other feed for livestock, having three different types of bees typified: Melilotus, Colza, and Trio Saracen. And Saracen wheat, I'm sorry. We also provide technical advisory to small and medium-sized producers. And during 2018, we won the National Award for Entrepreneurial Mother. And from there, the Appi.ar became a reality. Appi.ar is a tool that processes field data, improving planning and in continuous improvement of bee production. We have prepared a simple, robust, and reliable product. This is a tool, as I was telling you, that allows us to release field information in a systematized and easy way, so that based on this data, we can intervene in those moments or in those processes to be able to generate improvement.
The tool is considered for farmers and technical guys as well. We have a set of control. We have analyzed this. We fill a lot of documents and we put them on the truck. We get home tired, and this is never processed. So this tool led us to get home, to sit on next to the computer, and the data taken from the field can be available. How do we see Appi.ar? It is available in Play Store for free for producers. We have a GPS, a geopositioning from a picture of the place, so what the bees are, and something with the fill that template that led us to analyze, to assess what we need in the field. This template and the companies we advise to give information. We made 40 to 45 trips to the field. And when we got this information, we realized that we had the field date and no work, no tasks were performed. So we're able to use 2025 annual trips. So there is also a red light that you can see, a small one. It is related to the populational condition of the beehives. So it's also related to an interpretation, friendly interpretation. Beehives, green beehives are those. Category number one, good ones. Beehives category two are the yellow ones, and category three are the red ones. To the extent this data is taken, the graph is modified, and as a technical guy or as a producer, we can see that if it is more in red, things are becoming complicated. If it is green, things are improving. We have also a pie graph that talks about the mortality. Since we measure the mortality of our HIVAs, we are being able to reduce that's our around 25 to 30 annually to something which is around 5 to 8%. So also shows an economic improvement for production. And what are the benefits we have by using Appi.ar? It reduces hidden costs, such as the trips, a more organized and complete task. It optimizes times and resources, reports available in real time. It also allows to manage the risk management and GPS positioning. This web interface that let us to have this control thing and geopositioning of beehives and the guidance of good practices in the beehive thing. Who do we expect using this tool? Minimum size producers, 18 to 35 years old, that are near the technology of the mobile support, um, strengthen producers that need to organize their companies, and also consultant technical people putting as their companies and companies looking at the sustainability and managing their environments. Some numbers that I brought to think about the potential of this tool. Just on the southern region in Ica has some 6,800,000 beehives. We see Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay. We stated that this is a scalable tool. If we can think out of these 6 million beehives, the use of 10% for the first year to grow to 30, 40% on the second year and to get to 70% on the third year. If we can do that, we're going to have an important scalability peak. We also stated a business model based on $1 per beehive per year. So there we believe that we can start from this 680,000 beehives and getting up to 4,200,000 US dollars. It can be replicated. Yes, it can be replicated. We can do it first in the 34 member states of ICAM, and from there to expand to the world. We consider that we have and we made the triple impact, improving the local development opportunities. Environmental ones, we know that the bee is an environmental measure by nature. Where there is a bee and a good bees, we all of us are going to be better. And also to promote the entrepreneurship development between men and women. We consider this as an opportunity. It is unique in the market with minimal cost. We have a team that can face this challenge, and we also consider that this is a good opportunity as family economic strengthening for women and young people. With regard to the gender aspect, I consider this has a big possibility that led us to accommodate times in the case of women to be able to coordinate care activities with exploitation. And if we add technology, we're going to use this time, we're going to optimize these times even more. What are the future goals required to support the digitalization process? It was available since 2019. However, we were kind of my approximation to technology. And in these 2 years, we have assessed, we have decided to get closer to better explain and to train these young people and these producers. How do we plan to do this? Mainly by technology transfer from age groups. So what your grandpa would not want to listen to the granddaughter. to improve this beekeeping activity and to have more sustainability. Our intention also is that Appi.ar will generate changes in the structure of beekeeping structures. So the app also lets to take control of mortality, and the sanitary control area also has a stock of drums and honey colors that will allow the relationship in a better manner with the trade market. As I mentioned before, the role of women in bee keeping has improved. Many years ago, there were just a few of us, and we consider this is vital for the growing of the sector. Our future step is to strengthen the app on Appi.ar with an Appi.ar Plus, where we're going to add some kind of remote control. We have also planned to generate searching curves. This is in use nowadays, and to improve the profitability of the systems. We propose an inclusive beekeeping, which is competitive and sustainable. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria del Carmen, for your presentation. We have time for one question if you want to ask it. If otherwise, we will continue with Diego Hendricks, and at the end, we're going to have questions and answers. We're going to talk to Diego Sarap of Origino from Argentina as well. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Ika. It is a pleasure for me to share this space with you. Origino is the rebranding of Carnivalidad, which is our origin as a startup near 2019. And now we are migrating to Origino, which is a global platform solution, multi-service and multi-active. Okay. We are two co-founders, Diego Henrique, an agronomist, and with a long institutional path. Nicolas Australia as a biologist and manager in an important pharmaceutical company in Argentina. So here the presentation. Let me move on. So what do we believe? Basically, that there is a big opportunity in creating digital assets and the expanded traceability in the supply chains, the development of decentralized finances, the demand of transparency and trust, particularly in the supply chains, particularly the way they are produced. And blockchain is a tool to work for the care of climate and ecosystems. Consumers require more and better information, particularly everything related to the social impact, the environmental impact, and ethics of production, recently mentioned with Gustavo. So the big challenge of these supply chains is to create value chains aligned by ethics of production. And this is the way where transparency and trust we could provide. What do we solve? A series of information we have here in the stars mentioning that there is a lot of information events that remain as information silos, difficult to migrate. So we provide response to this by creating a bridge and a communication channel from the first stakeholder on the chain to the last one, having as our first stakeholder the consumer. Our idea was to have a QR code on a package somewhere in the world. And we did that, but we realized that this information provides a lot of support to insurance, finances, and many other value chains, not only meat. So through traceability, to be able to transfer information from one stakeholder to another one is important. Transferring information and to audit the information in blockchain. How do we do this? Origino is a SaaS platform on blockchain. So we generate the tokenization or the creation of identity, digital identity of assets. These assets are the ones that through traceability, expanded traceability, the events or impacts of information in the chain can get to the data consumer. And nowadays we're working in this as turning this data. So we have data, and in return we have money or royalties. What is our business model? The users are producers, premium producers. We have an underwriting level by producer. There is a payment per use. When the transaction between the one that kills an animal and send this to the refrigeration, we consider an economic activity because of the data. So they will be monetized, and as well as the marketers. This is the payment for you by use, and the rest is associated to the services provided to the value chain by third parties. So that will be sort of a fee for providing the service on the app. Users, producers, B2C is aimed to these integrated producers into the marketing. B2B is related to supermarkets, retailers, or funds that wants to organize supply chains. Those will be our customers. And B2B to C is related to financial systems, everybody providing services to their customers. Our value proposal for all of them to be innovative and to apply the new technologies into new markets, selling products and services as unblocking assets. So put an asset, a cow that is in the field without a visualization for the financial system, that this turns into a financial asset, and to support production with information. And finally, we facilitate many operations and the digitalization of digital processes and the integration. So integration of the systems generating information, so all of them to generate the value. This is the integration in order to generate the value. We're working nowadays in Token back in Argentina. Very soon we're gonna have the token purple and the token narrow. So the value chain of pigs was quite similar to the meat one and the trees because we saw that in the trees and the cows, there was that which was the carbon footprint or the compensation for the carbon footprint. So we decided to go on the trees, and sometimes the two chains were going to be one next to the other one. We have a tool called Validita, a punctual case, a validation of a documentary set. One user validating this. It's not just an asset as in the previous case. It is a documentary set to have them as a support. We're working on a friendly tool. This is artificial intelligence algorithm to validate the free deforestation and tools for insurance and finances. So Canis Validadas was the first tool, the one that we had end to end, and this is where we have our customers and users nowadays. I love showing this because we talk about adding value with information. We start from, so when we talk about traceability and we talk about expanded traceabilities, because traceability per se, the livestock, for example, for exploitation requires traceability, and there is traceability. It is about identifying the origin and establishment. We talk about expanded because we're going to tell the story of the producer, the niche markets to apply, and any sustainability aspect that appear. They are related to the free deforestation, the food carbon print, biodiversity, and animal well-being. So what does our NFT has? Our core is to create tokens, and this is NFT. This is our technology with different entities as like users companies, the token perceive tax, events, transfers, all these entities are traceable, and each event or data are traceable for all these entities. All this represents an NFT, which is unique with capacity to prove scarcity. So let me show you a little bit. So we did the traceability, and one of the information that appeared to satisfy the demand of consumers was when we said we want a sustainability. What is sustainability? Carbon footprint. Carbon footprint. No concrete data existed to show on a QR code, but we have free deforestation, and free deforestation of establishments is something that is enforced in Colombia, Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. Nowadays, we can talk about the perimeter and to give a date, a cut date. Since the time we want to validate the free deforestation, the algorithm uses artificial intelligence and gives this type of result. These are 100,000 hectares, the perimeter established for the northern region in Argentina, in Salta. You can see in different colors the different dates of the deforestation aspect. As data for deforestation in the chain of meat, and there are three actors, the breeding and the feed. So what we determined so far was that the film is the one that does not have free deforestation because they were the last 90 days, but the animal lives from 2 to 3 years. So that will strengthen the possibility that each establishment can transfer information of free deforestation associated to the cattle and to get to refrigerators. And from there on, traceability, outgoing traceability is related to others. So this is one of the industries that is asking for free deforestation and that is paying for it. This is a case we're working on. Our users are all over Argentina. We have more than 33,000 tokens, meaning some $2 million tokenized. Our customers are customers that we are billing nowadays. And on the bottom, those are users that are using this as tokenizations. There are genealogy sets where it has a lot of value. And nowadays they are using us a lot. And this coming week, we are going to support the breadth matter with an important number of animals that are tokenized. So we're going to have, in the coming days, we have an agreement with the Porca Group in Cordova City to have the first token porco and expand the traceability. We're working in order to, with Optimizar Forestal, to generate this expanded traceability, to use existing and standard compliance test, everything related to certificates and test and how this evolves with time. This is what we built as forestation and as existence evidence. Our team, 14 people, the two co-founders, Nicolas Balestrini and myself, our external team of advisors and partners. Our partners, and this is important, our first 24 partners were strategic partners. They were cattle partners or some part of the, somewhere in the chain that were interested in this development. So for us, that was an important source of connections to the whole chain. We are working with Insensag in digital implementation and algorithm, which is our blockchain platform providing the basic support for Origino. Our plans, so we started as an AgTech with field data. We understood and we are providing today support. We are selling insurance to Seguros in Argentina. We and our aim is to become a platform for producers can have access to funding, insurance, risk management, and nowadays we're working in Argentina. We're going to be working in Paraguay. Next week we're going to be there. And we have many presentations, many conversations with Uruguay, Mexico, and Colombia, and Bolivia. And the rest of Latin America will add in our way. So we are aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals regarding Financa and Aseguro, regarding transparency and trust of the consumption, and with tools, and we are developing some tools related to the care of ecosystems. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diego. For time reasons, we're going to go to the next presentation, and during the interval, we're going to continue with the questions. So I invite Overpay from Mexico, FarmerBox representative. Go ahead, Uber. Your floor is yours.
Entonces se prepara la presentación.
So while the presentation is ready, good morning, everybody here and those who are connected. My appreciation for this nice space of open exchange. My name is Hubert Petty. I am a FarmerBox founder. I come from Mexico. 15 years working in Latin America with coffee growers, cocoa, and topics related to funding, market access, capacity building. But today I'm gonna introduce FarmerBox. FarmerBox is a platform startup that creates digital solutions for the first mile. And focus in transforming data into knowledge, or data into actions or better decisions. And let me contextualize this. The first mile, I'm going to talk a lot about co-creation of low-tech solutions. In my case, what I have learned is that there are many farmers, growers, and there you can see in Mexico mountains. The first thing that I remember when I was studying is a book that was called Little One is Beautiful. So I'm thinking about that technology, adaptive technology. So from there, to remember that technology solves needs, and many farmers I was working with are families. It's family agriculture, and this is where the need lies. And finally, before programming or creating something, we have to think it and design this on paper, thinking about who's going to use that, because you're going to save investment and money, and you're not going to spend money before developing your solution. As I was saying, we focus and we cooperate with small growers organizations, and some particularities by small growers. I mean, producers of 2, 3 hectares, in some cases less than 1 hectare, and they are in remote rural communities, and their focus before marketing or production is getting better life opportunities. So coffee, cocoa become means for a better life. And finally, they are in specialty markets with high quality standards, compliance with organic standards, and all that requires a lot of data to be proven. Also, there are many challenges. Often the cooperatives or associations have limited resources. They are in regions or limited connectivity or zero connectivity, and also with limited technical teams in numbers and capacities. But I have learned that we should not leave them because they cause a multiplier effect. So what I have seen is that to have 1,000 of producers, they are the vehicle, and they are at the same time the FarmerBox. We are 3, and we have consultants that activate when required. But the workers are the technical guys in cooperatives for B. So why do we need the farmer box? We require more. We require data more and more, as well as the organizations too, because of product traceability, compliance for certifications. If they receive a project, they need to prove that they have implemented the project. So they are asked for data, data, and data. But all this is in hard copy or in Excel. So Maria del Carmen explained that pretty well before. So there are thousands of papers or piles and piles of paper. So what we do is we have thought on a platform focused in business intelligence for producers, organizations, letting them to digitalize field data offline and then online, and to automate the process of synthesizing with just a few key indicators and to make it, to visualize it. This part to better understand that, and finally to share this information and to prevent another stakeholder requesting the same data. So that are there. So how can we make a good use of it to share them instead of repeating the work of the task? And those are processes. The word process has been mentioned many times here. So we try to transform that into knowledge or to transform a cost into benefits, basically. So data is the past, knowledge is the future. How we want to change the future based on what we are. With three pillars. One is the small data. Small data is about looking for those data that very often we do not realize. For example, we visit the rural house. There are many houses, and just to know about the kitchen, if they are ventilated or not, that make a big changes in health matters, for example. But also relating this to information available, met information, market information. Sometimes we do not get that. We have the phone, and it's going to rain today, so this is easy and evident. But for many people, it is not so. Just because they do not know that there is an app doing that. And the third part, which is important, is training, capacity building, in order to ensure that these processes do not depend on technology and that they has to be sustainable, that they can own that and to keep it on time. Let me show you a little bit the three products, the three main products we have. The first one is the mobile apps for online, offline, and data collection. In our case, we have thought and standardized forms that could be customized very easily. And if there is open code technology for free, we prefer to use this one and to connect it to this platform. Second part, once they have filled that is, okay, I have another system. How can I connect this with data from sales, commercial data, processing data? So we created portals online, so business intelligence portals with databases that through the IP connect and centralize the data in an integrated integral data model. And finally, the possibility to share by creating communities with other stakeholders, always caring for this for giving this part of the data to make them anonymous, by creating communities with public and private stakeholders to go beyond a cooperative and to see a landscape. So when the perspective and the optic change a little bit, we can solve biggest problems that cannot be solved alone.
A few examples. The content was developed based on how needs took place. There are different modules. One is a diagnosis for homes. That is for us very important, since I was telling you, we have to see if the producer is not only making more money, but is improving the household, because more money perhaps might mean more migration to the city. We have also internal inspections there. We have created a multi-certification form. Every certificate will bring its own format, etc. And we have offered one that's good for the whole certifier. We saw that spend money and money in soil analysis in the lab. There, if the calculations are made, it's a lot of money invested. So what we have done is to create and try to automate together with the agronomical engineer. That's the intervention. So we add information from the lab and they tell us how much nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium you need, and also visualize it so that the producers can understand it. Pests, which is also very important, the crop estimates with climate change. That has changed a lot from what it used to be. There is no other way than just go out and count grains. It's done with a robot, but how can you do it when you have large pending matters? So that was the idea for this. Aside from the portals, we have from a manager who can see all the information online, but also the possibility of creating and giving some more visual part to these or individual plans to return information to producers. And the applications that I was telling you about, for example, a program with a moon calendar together with producers. We have programmed exactly what are the days based on the moon movements when to plant, because that's something that the young ones don't know and books don't include. There's also, here we have two examples for landscapes. There are two few indicators are like the thermometers for a landscape. What we see here on top, for example, we have aligned to the National Action Plan for Peruvian coffee. And we can see that in the north of Peru, how we're contributing through projects to the biggest plan in Peru. We have a map down here always with a streetlight methodology. This is information on the pH, and the pH we can see quickly where it's green, where it's okay, or in red or in other places where more fertilizers are required. But unfortunately, also where the soil does not yield any more for coffee crops. So we have to have a public stakeholder there or private investors to be able to do all this. And I'm almost done. Well, let me tell you, this has not been an easy path. I began way before, but with my own startup in 2016. And there we discovered that there is definitely a lot of need. And we focused, first of all, on taking a look at mobile, low cost solutions or free solutions, mostly flexible or personalized. From there, we decided to better define their products, the data integration, how to take better advantage of that data integration. And today we are on the consolidation and scaling phase, much in relation to data homogenization. I say this because well, I'm sorry for that. Along the way, we were not alone, but sometimes we're not the only crazy people. There are other crazy ones who share the same craziness. We have moved forward from cooperatives, but also cooperative guilds like Pepe Cacao, or a multi-stakeholder platform from NGOs that promote this, like Ricolto, and international stakeholders like ILO in Peru, to take a look at this part here in the productivity sector, but also with better conditions in the agenda. And we have reached more than 30 organizations. This is a significant producer figure. It's multi-chain for coffee, cocoa, and sugar loaf. We have seen that we're different. There are several solutions like this, but why do they come? I think that the main thing is because we're there. It's in Spanish, first of all, and we are there on the field. We need consultants that go out there. We also need to think on payments, not so much on mere technology, but also pay for advisory. And it has to be flexible, integrable. This is not about a system that does it all, but how we can also take advantage of what we already have. And it is based on field practice. So this is a balance between standardizing and customizing. And our vision is mostly to consolidate the business model. And we think that we are in a stage of going from the fact that it's the producer who gives the data and to be the one who receives the benefit of the data. So we need to see how we can monitor this with public benchmarks or other strategies. And well, this was my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hubert, for your presentation. As I told Diego, also, we're running short of time, so let's leave questions for a little bit later. I'll yield the floor to Eduardo Cordasco in representation of Wiagro Argentina. Go ahead, Eduardo. My name is Martin Cordasco. I'm CEO and co-founder of Wiagro. Wiagro is a platform for digitalizing, in principle, grains, but the idea is to digitalize food, creating a digitalization standard. Why do we want to digitalize food? Because there is a worldwide issue that many speak about soil productivity, but it's not too visible, which is the express loss of food. Three $1 trillion are in economic loss. 8% of greenhouse gases are lost. 70% food worldwide is also goes to waste. Drinking water also goes to 21 goes of water goes to waste. And we have the food for the people who are going to be born in 2050, which is 2 billion people, and we throw all this away every year, and this cannot continue to be so. Let's begin with grains. This is such a big problem. And since we come from Argentina, which is one of the big grain producers in the world, and we see the figures here, what is about grain loss or grain waste. We produce more than 3 million tons a year of global grains, 2.5 are go to waste. It's $14 million dollars that are wasted every year in grains. More than half the production of Argentina is stored like this. This entails a very elevated risk, and if the bag gets damaged, there can be deterioration in the grain. And what have we created? We have created devices to measure the intergrain atmosphere of these grains to prevent losses. We measure carbon dioxide and others, and this is connected to satellites. Information comes to our servers, and this data is turned into useful information for our producers. We have three premises when digitalizing food. First of all, is that the device has to have global connectivity, it has to be reusable, and it has to be self-installable. It does not need require to have technical staff. The second instance for the digitalization process is to transform the data with useful information for the different stakeholders in the chain and for the producer by using algorithms, artificial intelligence, and even blockchain. And afterwards, access to the information. That information, it pertains to the producer and it can be shared with whomever they want. For example, a case of Cargill, they want to send something to India. Others want to see this in our event. It doesn't matter where you see this. You can check for it in our platform or any other platform because the producers are tired of so many platforms. What's important is that they have the information in time and form. What services do we offer? Well, quality. Well, we prevent losses and monitor the quality of our grains. And an inventory control, everything that is related to traceability with blockchain, and everything that pertains to integrations with API and other platforms. What is our market? Well, the farmers, producers that with this information, they can prevent losses. And in addition, they can make better decisions because oftentimes the older ones are in the best state of conservation. And we have other post-harvest players, for example, insurance companies, financial companies, brokers, people who tokenize the grains and require this data, and we can provide that. We began, when we began, we were 4 founders for Wiagro: Martin Cordasco, Ulysses Mikkelsen, and Santiago Duran, and Israeli Smirlian. And we have Argentine Nanotechnology Research Foundation. That's a place where we have basic sciences and applied sciences Argentina. You're invited to come over whenever you want. We're so proud of belonging to this foundation because it's not just any company that can enter. We were chosen among 20 for the last slot that was available. How did we make money? Well, we began funding by bootstrapping and funding ourselves with our own funds with 2 products: digitalization of the grains that are in silo bags and rafts along the river. With this bootstrapping and with the 4 founders, we were able to reach 4 countries at the worldwide level and to have these well-known customers: Cargill, Molinos Agro, Bioceres, etc. And we did several partnerships with several technology companies, insurance companies, partners, and other connecting farms in Australia, for example. And afterwards, we got the investment. We went out to look for venture capital. Coca-Cola and Grupo Murchison Puerto Asís decided to invest in Wiagro. That way, we were able to buy equipment, which is the most important thing a startup has. Now we're 10, and soon we're going to be 15. The evolution, as I was telling you, the digitalization process depends on taking down the data, not a satellite image. We need to create our own devices. These devices, as you can see here to the left, were big. Then we began making them smaller and smaller. Now we're working on a label. That label is going to be stuck inside the silo bag, in a coffee bag, a cocoa bag, and we can monitor quality in real time. This is the machine. It used to be a video, but it's in PDF now. This machine costs $400,000. That allows us developing these technologies and our own sensors with nanotechnology. That's where we are. With the funds, we can develop these nano sensors. We already have the users. We provide services, and it's going to be used in the coming harvest. This is because we first began delivering digitalization devices, but afterwards there was no staff to go and install them. So the idea was to make them already integrated in the bag. And we did not just remain there. With the funds, we can go and work on other types of grains elsewhere with silo caps or silo cells, preventing hot spots, because right now we just measure temperature by telemetrics. The idea is that 7 to 10 days before the hot spot occurs and the grain begins deteriorating, we can stop it. And also fumigation of the grains, because there are several services that are annexed to those grains. With phosphine, we can remotely measure if it was well fumigated and if there is no risk for the staff once the phosphine leaves the place. And we did not remain just there. This is just the beginning. We began with grains and oil crops because we consider that this is like the oil of all foods, because this is used to feed animals and others. We have a project in Israel for post-harvest, and we have digitalized all the food. So once they are digital, we can provide value to real time that would be prevent losses to those foods. Afterwards, we can also give value to the past with the blockchain. And we have a tool with analytics that predicts how the food will be, for example, in a bag from now to 6 months, what's the risk level. This is a tool for producers to play with price and also to know if it is convenient to sell it now or not. We have accurate data. We have many success cases with customers or producers from Tartagal. I was in Buenos Aires. They received an alert because the bag was fully opened with connectivity issues. They had to call. He was able to call. The person went there, and yes, the bag was open, and what could be done was done. Part was resacked, a part was sold, and 3 days later, the heavy rains came. So there was significant savings there. There was elsewhere where there's a bag that had an alarm, and they looked on the bottom of the bag and they were able to see that the bag was deteriorating. So this is another success case. This gives us more motivation to continue digitalizing food. And the most important thing is that we need to care for that. That is so hard to produce. We need to care for that because I cannot think that we have the food for the people who's going to be born in 2050 and we're throwing it away every year. That is something I just cannot get a grip of. We have indicators of OAS and the UN in a responsible production, zero hunger, climate change, and everything that I have been mentioning. We invite you to follow us on the social networks, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Martin, for the presentation. Thanks to the four and the two speakers at the beginning. Let's have a short break now so that we can adjust to times. And we will be back soon at 11 o'clock, please.
Recording stopped.
Como todas las grandes historias, la del IICA se construyó con trabajo, tiempo y resultados. El Instituto Interamericano de Cooperación para la Agricultura, IICA, celebra en el 2022 sus primeros 80 años de vida. Cimentada en un historial de impactos en favor del bienestar de las comunidades rurales y el desarrollo agropecuario de las Américas. El cumplimiento de esa misión se apoya en una oferta de cooperación técnica innovadora y de excelencia, siempre en actualización y alineada a las necesidades de sus 34 Estados miembros. Son soluciones que se conciben y se implementan a partir de la acción de una red de expertos distribuidos estratégicamente en 35 oficinas que escuchan, proponen y actúan para ejecutar proyectos que agregan valor, generan arraigo, secuestran carbón, cuidan los suelos, refuerzan la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional, incrementan productividad e ingresos, potencian el comercio y contribuyen a la generación de un círculo virtuoso que jerarquiza la actividad agropecuaria y fortalece la vida rural. Son acciones que apoyan la transformación rural y agrícola de América Latina y el Caribe, contribuyendo decisivamente a la esperada y necesaria recuperación económica post-pandemia. Esas soluciones, vitales para transformar y mejorar los sistemas agroalimentarios de las Américas, se nutren de los aportes y el intercambio de los equipos del IICA con sus socios, gobiernos, el sector privado, la academia, organismos internacionales de crédito y la sociedad civil, actores siempre referentes, locales, regionales e internacionales, en agricultura, desarrollo rural y sostenibilidad. Ese trabajo institucional, anclado en la ciencia y una profunda interacción con la tecnología, es el que consigue incrementar las contribuciones del sector agropecuario al desarrollo de los países, porque su foco está puesto en el bienestar de los habitantes de la ruralidad y en aumentar la resiliencia de los territorios y los sistemas agroalimentarios al cambio climático. A esta tarea se suma la de la formulación e implementación de las mejores políticas públicas adecuadas a cada circunstancia. El IICA entiende que no habrá un futuro próspero sin agricultura y que la agricultura de un mejor futuro debe ser intensiva en conocimientos, sustentable y socialmente inclusiva. Por eso contribuye a esa visión posicionando como activos estratégicos al sector agropecuario, a los sistemas agroalimentarios y a los territorios rurales, claves para generar empleos, ingresos y divisas y construir un desarrollo más sostenible. Promover esa nueva agricultura exigió la implementación de una profunda transformación en una institución que, modernizada, se proyecta desde su sede central en San José, Costa Rica, hacia sus 34 estados miembros. El IICA de puertas abiertas es el concepto que sintetiza ese compromiso e incluye la creación del Centro de Interpretación del Mañana de la Agricultura, CIMAG, una propuesta educativa y sensorial sobre las tecnologías que modernizan el agro, la construcción de la Plaza de la Agricultura de las Américas y la Casa Rural, y el Fab Lab, especializado en innovación tecnológica para reducir la brecha digital rural. Este ICA de puertas abiertas también opera sobre una gran plataforma de gestión del conocimiento sobre agricultura y en una red de alianzas estratégicas que lo vincula a los principales centros de excelencia del mundo y con los que aborda temáticas supranacionales como la degradación de los suelos, la inclusión digital y la promoción de la innovación y el cooperativismo en favor de los agricultores familiares, de las mujeres y de los jóvenes rurales. Como puente para actuar con países, regiones, gobiernos, el sector privado, la academia y la sociedad civil, de modo de avanzar hacia esa nueva ruralidad, el IICA enfatiza en esa oferta de dimensión ambiental, colaborando para incrementar resiliencia y adaptación, y contribuir para que la agricultura, los sistemas agroalimentarios y las comunidades rurales se sobrepongan a la vulnerabilidad climática, reduciendo también la emisión de gases de efecto invernadero y aumentando el secuestro de carbono. La conformación de alianzas y la puesta en marcha de programas para trabajar por y para los países pusieron en primer plano la capacidad de articulación del IICA, reflejada en el histórico consenso de los países en torno a los 16 mensajes que unificaron la posición de las Américas en la Cumbre de Sistemas Alimentarios de la ONU. Esos mensajes reforzaron el papel irreemplazable de la agricultura y recordaron que los productores agropecuarios y los trabajadores de los sistemas alimentarios son un eslabón imprescindible y central, y que sin producción agropecuaria no hay materias primas para transformar en alimentos. También destacaron a la agricultura como una actividad fundamental para erradicar la pobreza, impulsar el desarrollo rural y proteger el medio ambiente. Articulando trabajos a lo largo de todo el continente para resguardar y reforzar la sanidad vegetal y animal, el IICA, en camino a su centenario, también acrecienta día a día su vigencia al cumplir una misión sensible y estratégica: llevar paz y prosperidad a los territorios rurales y contribuir a un mejor futuro para los pueblos de nuestra América, ayudando a que la región consolide su liderazgo como garante de la seguridad alimentaria, nutricional y ambiental del planeta.
Hola, hola.
Como todas las grandes historias, la del IICA se construyó con trabajo, tiempo y resultados. El Instituto Interamericano de Cooperación para la Agricultura, IICA, celebra en el 2022 sus primeros...
Vamos, que estamos como con 20 minutos de demora.
Cimentada en un historial de impactos en favor del bienestar de las comunidades rurales y el desarrollo agropecuario de las Américas. El cumplimiento de esa misión se apoya en una oferta de cooperación técnica innovadora y de excelencia, siempre en actualización y alineada a las necesidades de sus 34 Estados miembros. Son soluciones que se conciben y se implementan a partir de la acción de una red de expertos distribuidos estratégicamente en 35 oficinas que escuchan, proponen y actúan para ejecutar proyectos que agregan valor, generan arraigo, secuestran carbono, cuidan los suelos, refuerzan la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional, incrementan productividad e ingresos, potencian el comercio y contribuyen a la generación de un círculo.
Recording in progress.
Hola. Bueno, estamos de regreso.
Hello, we're back in the second stage of the day. Now we're going to be speaking with the representatives of three very important spaces, even for you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. Let's move on with the startups and continue with that. In the first place, I'm going to offer the floor to Danilo Miranda, representing Luzbaldi Work. So we begin with them. Greetings to all. Let me introduce myself. My name is Danilo Miranda. I am a co-founder of BloomsPal, and at BloomsPal, we are developing the biggest farm in the world. Imagine a solution that connects buyers of agricultural raw material with any producer at the global level in one single solution. But before telling you about what is it that we do, I would like to provide you with some more context. We are currently going through one of the worst global agricultural crises. 1/3, according to the World Bank, 1/3 of the global population is excluded from agricultural food chains. What does this mean? This means that agricultural products are not reaching consumers. There is scarcity at the global level, and this is happening in developed countries and in developing countries as well. And when we investigate more about what is going on and where are the inefficiencies in supply chains, we found the following data. According to FAO, approximately 40% of what is being produced annually becomes either loss or waste. Almost half of what is produced globally turns into waste. Amazing, isn't it? Out of that 40%, there is 10% that belongs to retail, supermarkets, restaurants, basically cities. A big part of inefficiencies in supply chains is in the first part of the agricultural value, which is from the farm to distribution. What does that mean? It means the farms and the customers. And these inefficiencies, the first part of the value, agricultural value chain, is due to a big disconnection between farms and buyers, which basically causes that it's few buyers that are really getting to the origin of production, that's farms, generating extremely high levels of intermediation in the supply chain. According to USDA, for each dollar that consumer spends in retail at supermarkets, 15 cents reach the farm due to the very huge intermediation levels we have in supply chains. And the future does not look too promising. Their future, according to United Nations, in less than 2 years, global population will reach 9 million people. And this growth in the population is going to generate that the agricultural industry has to produce between 70 to 100% to equal demand. We need to face waste, lack of supply, and inefficiencies in agricultural value chains right away. And that is what BloomsPal solves. BloomsPal is a software that helps farms, producers, and wholesale buyers to centralize the whole trade, logistics, and payments in one single place, allowing producers to send all their production directly to international or national buyers. And this is mostly by choosing the price that they want to sell at, and to buyers by centralizing all their operations in a software that allows them how to have good provision in one single place. We are not e-commerce. We are a supply software, a place where we centralize all the operation from beginning to end in the supply that is able to connect producers and wholesale buyers like importers, wholesalers, distributors, supermarkets, retail, processing plants directly with producers, while we centralize the whole commercial logistics process and payments in one single place. We're the mix between a marketplace, a software as a service, a network, agribusiness network, and logistical services to be able to integrate the first part of the agricultural value chain and connect producers directly with buyers. What do we offer? For buyers, we have a supply software, a purchase software that centralizes managing suppliers from beginning to end. We're talking about the seeking producers, the purchases, quotations, and post-mortem on a purchase event, which literally means invoicing, reconciliation, logistics issues, to be able to reach advanced analytics for the different procurement events. And a purchase event is a specific need that the buyer has in a given time. This buying event involves different producers in different parts of the world to be able to have direct negotiation with each of these producers, so that everybody can confirm what they want, so that they achieve 100% of what is required and is confirmed, so that afterwards this can go to logistics and to know how the product is going to be brought to the warehouse or wherever it is required. On the side of the producers, we have a solution that also involves the whole sales process, from saying what is sold, how is it packed, how much does it weigh, what's the availability, where is it located, and lots of information that the buyer needs to know so that when the buyer is going to ask for a quotation, they know how to integrate all the information beforehand, and it's a lot more expeditious process. In addition, we also have services to catch business for business opportunities, sales closing, real-time negotiations, and also at the end to reach advanced analytics of what is going on these sales events and how the sellers are executing the sales process. Since we began, we have been exponentially growing. We began in October 2020, and since we have been selling our product to our customers, we have been growing 20% month after month. Currently, we're working with 250 agribusinesses with transactions higher than $10 million. And these transactions come from international buyers directly with producers. And without any degree of intermediation, where literally these $10 million reach the hands of producers. And we are with customers in more than 10 countries. Our business model is very simple. To buyers, we offer a software. We sell supply technology specifically developed for agri, which understands how units work. It depends on the issues. If it's a perishable product, cold storage chains, amongst others, it's customized for the needs of a company that requires agricultural raw material to be able to buy. We sell technology to buyers, and we sell a monthly subscription, which is calculated at more or less 2% of what is purchased. And this is scaled. This is a monthly subscription for buyers. For producers, it's for free. In addition, we have several services to be able to enable, since we already know how the supply chains work, to be able to enable some points in the supply chain that are required, that require support by the buyer as well as by the producer. And the opportunity in Latin America is tremendous. And this is important for all the people who are listening to bear this in mind. From the world crisis that I mentioned at the beginning, Latin America is becoming a power. Latin America in experts for experts has been growing more or less in the past 10 years by 8% annually. Every year, experts grow by 8%. For today, we can reach more or less to international market share for experts of almost 20%. And this is some piece of information. Latin America, not only are we becoming an agricultural global power, but all agricultural exporting regions since 2020 have of the pandemic, quarantines, etc., and the health crisis. The regions, the rest of the regions, exporting regions, decreased almost 20% in exports. Latin America grew by 6%. This speaks a lot about the resilience of what is going on and what is occurring in relation to agro in Latin America. In BloomsPal, we began with the flower producer market. In the flower market in Colombia, that's one of the most important ones. Colombia is the first producer and the second worldwide exporter of flowers. Just the United States, 80% of the flowers sold in the United States come directly from a farm in Colombia. And currently, we're also expanding to the sector of fruit and vegetables. But what we handle is technology. For us to enter into any agricultural sector is very easy. And I represent it in this flywheel that we have here. We have a commercial team that seeks for buyers. Buyers receive technology to centralize supply. When the buyer acquires BloomsPal, they are adopting BloomsPal as their supply software. The only way they can buy is BloomsPal. They enter there the suppliers. Once the suppliers are entered, suppliers bring a selection, which is what they are offering. And once they have the selection, that we have more buyers because that's a network. We have a scouting and marketing team for new farms so that already existing buyers can have greater choices and they can work with more suppliers than what they normally have. And producers also refer to our buyers or customers to centralize the selling process. And producers are also buyers in many cases. When probably the demand is higher than the offer, than the supply, they have to go and look for other crops to be able to sell. And that's where we have a double engine in buyers and producers to be able to make the network grow in any sector that we are entering. All this growth and all that I'm telling you is supported by a team that has full knowledge, not only in agribusiness and logistics, supply chains, and technology. On one hand, we have Sonia de la Espriella. She is the industry founder. She has full knowledge of the industry. She's has more than 25 years of experience in agro commodity experts in Colombia. She's one of the few women who has had uh, this CEO level positions in Colombia. I tell her that she's a rock star in the industry. And myself, Danilo Miranda, I have more than 10 years of experience in the tech sector. I have worked for several startups. My last job was at Microsoft. I stayed for 5 years there selling technology in the cloud, software platforms, technological infrastructure to bring and somehow show all the benefits of digital transformation in different industries. And I'm now here from agriculture, digitally transforming supply chains to really change the world. I invite you, not only those of you who are connected through the networks and the colleagues here and government entities that are supporting us here, I invite you so that if you see any partnership with BloomsPal, just join them and make these things a reality. Agriculture needs a lot of work, lots of investment, and lots of effort. And last time when we weren't here, we felt totally identified with the others who are working on this. At BloomsPal, we have a vision that for really creating, as I said, the biggest farm in the world that any buyer can contact any producer with a direct relationship. And that way we can become the largest agricultural supply center in the world. I fully believe that agriculture is going to be the most important opportunity in Latin America to take millions of people out of the poverty conditions, just like no other industry. There is a global context that depends on us, and we're going to capitalize on that and democratize it so that it can reach all the stakeholders in the chain, and so that we can also take advantage of this boom that's coming. The agricultural needs globally is going to be very strong, and we are going to be listening more and more in the news that this global crisis is going to impact us all in the planet. And we are at a very strategic position right now. So, well, this is my take home message. Thank you very much. My name is Danilo Miranda, and this is BloomsPal. Thank you, Danilo, for your presentation. Before moving on to the next one, I would like to introduce you to the ICA representative in Argentina, Dr. Caio Rocha from Brazil, but he is here representing Argentina. Now, let's move on to the next startup. And afterwards, in the interest of time, we're going to questions. Alfredo Fen, who's going to speak now. He is the representative of Fresca Pesca from Chile. So, Alfredo, whenever you're ready, we can begin. Those of you who have had direct contact and who have found 1 kilo of small scale fishers fish, I'm impressed here. We have more Argentinians here that eat more fish than meat. Well, these artisanal fishers changed my life. I come from the fisheries industry, exporter fisheries, and in a conversation several years ago with the leaders of artisanal fishery, understanding the problem of fisheries, in that conversation, they told me, you're from artisanal fishery, and said, Alfredo, look, we understand the problem that fishers have and the future that is related to rural migration of our kids, that has to do with sustainability of our communities. We would like you to put technology in our vessels, but please help us in our future. And I began studying more and more. I love fish. I eat sushi, and it's something like we feel that like your hands are tied, because you say at the end, what am I going to do to be able to mitigate this problem with of mortality, the mammal mortality, the sea mammal mortality, a lobster that's too small in size because it was caught before time. We have supply chain issues, lots of intermediators, and unhappy consumers because they do not like the way in which they get the fish. In macro, we have multimillionaires like Ben Walton and several other economic groups that say, I do not want you to kill any more sea turtles. So they send a message to Congress in the United States. Congress in the United States sends the threat to Mexico, and they just close Baja California Sur. They close the shrimp producers in the north. Or they threaten with a yellow card the European Union to Ecuador and tell them you cannot fish more mahi-mahi because you're not doing it correctly. So in the macro way, and I'm going more back towards ICA, and our countries that are mostly exporters are suffering due to the lack of organization and to this problem, illegality issues. But this represents a very big opportunity because entrepreneurs are very clear about this, because sustainability and knowing where a product comes from is more and more a need in our table, more and more a need to prove our buyers that I know where my products come from, and that current certificates are not enough to be able to do this. Artisanal ones also know about this opportunity, but they have no way to access this. If we had fishers here amongst the audience, problems with payments, lots of intermediaries, certifications do not apply to them. They are being ripped off. They blame it. Everybody blames it all on the environment. There are many that have the possibility of becoming specialized. They have lots of resources, but they do not know how to do this. And oftentimes they need working capital. In the case of governments, there are many systemic issues. ICA joins once a year to speak with ministers of agriculture and set an agenda. But agricultural departments in several countries are in charge of these, but it does not reach the fisheries needs, or they are not related. So in government, if we make a study in Latin America, there's no data coverage. It's minimal, except for a couple of countries. The fisher registration is minimal. There is no solid multi-universal database for connecting the different platforms. We cannot cover the fisheries with observers on board, because fishers hate observers on board. And there is no real impact in development. Why? Because the many of those of you who are here know that this is done like a four-leg table. One is fishing. Either you help it economically, or you work with specific technology with a group of fishers, or you take the market logistics independently. But this cannot be done independently. It has to be done jointly, coordinated, what technology comes in at the end. We have done this with more than 50 fishing communities. Without entering too much into detail, this demands knowing about cost and prices, systematization, choosing the right fishers who might participate in this find the demand, understand the market target, and from there apply technologies. That is why we have developed this Fresca Pesca. We realized that Fresca Pesca is an online marketplace which solves the issue from the top to the bottom in relation to data density in terms of how to connect artisanal and industrial fishers with the end market with the delivery in that last mile. As we do with technology, what we do, we place a camera, which we developed. We cannot use a GoPro because we cannot transmit the data to the cloud without having information from the camera. This way, we eliminated 99% of the illegality perceived with GPS. Afterwards, we generated a cloud application that is connected with governments. We do not enter into any country without connecting data to the government data connection system. Afterwards, we do traceability with the labeling until we reach the end consumer. This is an example of the cameras and applications and traceability of labels before it reaches the restaurant. And afterwards, what we were able to do is that once it reached the restaurant scans the arrival of the product with a QR code in the table. On the table, the buyers can see the video, the greetings of the fisher, and marketing information. And this completes the chain, and this causes buying loyalty. And basically, in the case of buying itself, chefs or the person in charge of buying can also watch the video before buying. They can see the location and they compare these multi-vendor, multi-fishers, multi-distributors who participate in this, and they can choose based on information that they receive. And it generates a difference, a new category, not only for fish, but also for distribution to consumer and the restaurant.
Some examples of buying. So with Chile, my apologies for going so fast. $800 per week with an average purchase of this restaurant. And now we are, in this case of Chile, in Chile we have 22 restaurants, in Ecuador 6. This is the seafood example. In Ecuador, Coca-Cola General Motors really support the preferred one, which is the retail change. To support the launching of this, we are working with 15 artisanal fishers, and we have not even started in release, and we have in the app some 20 restaurants into the app. We have not started yet, but people we're working with have helped us to organize this and release Cell Catches Fresca Pesca Mom. It is a company working in several countries in the world. In Orange, we are starting this spin-off, which is Fresca Pesca, which completes their promise to artisanal fishers for them to have the best possible price and to have access to the buyers that they did not have before without the intermediaries. So we are also present in Puerto Rico. Each one of these apps can be used as a standalone. It can be used independently in each country. We have 1,000 fishers using our mobile app in Ecuador. And as you can see in other places, Norway, Germany, they're working with our cameras, among others. And this is our genesis. So fortunately, the NGOs and Chile's government for 18 and the support of many NGOs, we have been able to raise 1.5 million in direct technology sales. They are used for Fresca Pesca. We sold 2 million, and IDB, our first institutional investor, with $1 million. Now we are on set round. Thank you. Thank you, Alfredo. Thanks to you for your presentation. We have 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes for questions, maybe for the speakers or those who were not able to answer any question before. So if you have questions. Yes, Maria del Carmen, go ahead. I have a question for Danilo. how do you make the producer that goes into the platform as a loyal customer? This fidelization starts since your customer enters into the platform. And also the farms we go, we visit, or we include, we assure ourselves that what we are including is relevant to what is being requested in the transaction. So we are putting this and hard transactions or possible transactions. They can, and by being the suppliers. So in the company, no real visit to the establishment to see if it is meeting quality and these things. So sort of thing into the system, and that's it. Regarding certification costs, part of what we offer is what we call embedded network. So a network that is verified. So we have people, physical people that go and visit their producers when needed. When they are producers, well-known producers with a global gap, with a rainforest, or with certifications, it goes faster because this producer already made an investment to do this type of fast track, not only with us, but also to be able to sell to Walmart, Target, and some retails that require this type of certification. So on that side, yes, we have people that go and visit the producers. Well, we have been discussing these days. Our producers need to fulfill four main things. They need to have sustainable practices, or at least ready, or at least to be on the way to that. The three others: quality, consistency, and projection and forecast. So this is the way international buyers think about it. Thanks. Nicolas? A question for Alfredo. Well, I have two questions. The first one is related to a part which is on board oversight about the fishing and what difficulties you have, equipment installation, maintenance. And a second part of this question is if you feel that you're going to move towards other products, or if the company has a clear brand or identification with the fish market. Good questions. The fisher is impressing as a business character. Anything that generates business, a better business, he will do it. Initially, we believed that we were harbor masters, and we get there with our systems and saying, we are here to deploy this. No, sir. We deploy that on our own. So they intervene in their vessel. For them, it is kind of a joke. So when they see this as a business proposal, no problem. So the user said, no, that will make you to have 50% more per kilo. Oh, okay. And the other thing is that, in spite of having a need to see a big picture to show return and to be profitable, so to have other products, we have realized that instead of diversifying to fruits and legumes or others, we need to deepening in the multi-vendor method model. So millions and millions of dollars are there. So the idea is to use technology and to grow and to capture and to be this link that led other fishery sellers can use the Fresca Pesca platform to sell to their end customers. So the idea is not to move to fruits or legumes, but to deepening in what we already have. Thank you, Alfredo. Okay, so according to these questions, we're going to continue with the next panel. As you know, these days, so we have two of the speakers already logged on, and another one here. So these days we have been seeing an integral scenario from the vision of the states, ministers, associations, and research organizations, and today the producer sector. And now we're going to talk with strategic allies for you. And I believe this is the important thing of the work we are developing this week. I'm referring to these organizations that support and how empower the AgTech system in our countries and the Americas as a whole. So it is a pleasure to receive you and to thank all the speakers, both from AgTech Garage and Year 11 Frontline Capital. First of all, I will give the floor to Jose Tomé. Jose is the CEO of AgTech Garage from Brazil, one of the main hubs of innovation that we have in Latin America, or the main one. So, welcome, Jose. I give the floor to you. So, your peers 15 startups, especially selected from the continent, are here to listen to you. So I don't want to take more time from your time. So you have the floor. Thanks on behalf of ICA for your participation. Mike, he's muted. You are muted, Tomé. Okay, thank you. I will speak in Portuguese. I know you have simultaneous interpretation. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It is important to talk about our initiative as Innovation Hub in Agriculture in Brazil. So for ICA audience, it is a pleasure to be able to participate, and we are looking for interaction with other countries, with other stakeholders. So thank you for the invitation. I will share my screen. You can see the screen, right? Yes, we can. Good. Organizations like ours are created because we are facing a new innovation dynamics. Everything is changing. If everything is changing, why not changing the way to develop the new things for us? So in fact, because of the speed that we require on an accelerated changes environment, we need new ways to speed up the development of technologies and innovation in agriculture. Innovation is, we call it open innovation, collaborative innovation. An important point is that that begins with the appearance of best practices and tools and organizations to support all that on a professional manner. So, AgTech Garage started in 2017. Next year, we're going to celebrate 5 years of existence. We have seen many changes in this scenario for the past 2 years. The appetite, the interest of companies and relating startups and in a different manner with other stakeholders of the innovation ecosystem. Thank you for allowing me to talk here about these ecosystems. This is part of our stakeholders. This is an important network of partners, more than 80 companies that are in the whole agribusiness chain, from the field to the table. That shows the pertinence the companies are having and treat this topic on a more professional and structured manner with this open innovation startup point of view. Nowadays, we are almost 1,000 startups virtually connected to our community for direct technological challenges in the whole agribusiness chain. Later, I will give you more details. 13% of startups are outside Brazil. Startups can participate in this virtual community without any investment, and we have access to all of our partners on a facilitated manner. And we have access to these technological challenges. An important point is that people can understand why many people believe that a hub is a physical space. It is not just that. There's much more besides space. Space is important, of course. You have some features, but here I will quickly explain for you to understand why there's more than 80 companies are with us and why startups are with us. We have a technology, a way to work in order to satisfy the open composition and to provide results for big companies as well as for the producer. A key point is the figure of community manager. We have started having a new professional profile, a profession of the future. This manager takes care of the innovation community and supports each one of the partners with whom he is close to in order to generate the value. We also make an assessment with large companies. We have a prone for innovation, and from there we start understanding where to improve the processes and where, as well as structures. And throughout the year, we have several experiences and encounters to encourage the exchange among startups and large companies, partners, the academia, and programs like fellowship and university researchers inter alia. This platform is continuous like a virtual hub. Throughout the year, we have technological challenges for this community of startups. And physically, the hub becomes a part of large delivery. During the pandemic time, we did not use physical spaces. We were closed, but we did not stop growing. We grew to the double, and the number of startups and partners, and as part of the hub, even in the pandemic time, where the structure was not possible for access. Hub starts developing other initiatives, and we have ambitions. And our ambition is to innovate, to be innovative for large startup companies if needed, and that makes sense. So we have producers that we gather with their issues, trying to find better startups, planning best concept test. And with that, to get to the tip, to the other part. besides the support we provide with the startup companies, we have other opportunities, experiences, and learning experiences, programs, customized programs, and nowadays we have programs that focus based on the deforestation of the soil chains, and as well as a series of activities that that led us to grow as hub. Nowadays we have 44 people on a team, and if just to take care of a step, we will only have 4. So we have 40 other people providing deliveries of value generation for partners and startups all over the world. Our vision of ecosystem of networks is that the ecosystem. So we do not think on Brazil ecosystem, Argentina ecosystem, or American ecosystem. It is one single ecosystem globally connected. And the big question is that since we connect with the main stakeholders of the ecosystem, we can generate value for them. We capture value for those who participate. Today is seen as a global community of innovation. As I mentioned in the whole change, it is clear that this type of initiative will have a network effect with other companies, with more producers all together in this network. So the more we attract, the more value we generate. It's positioned to grow, the forecast is to grow 6 times in the coming 3 years. So imagine we're going to be with some 250 companies. Nowadays, we are 80 big companies participating in the network. We want to reach more than 250 companies. Our international positioning through the startups in our platform. And Brazil, we have 13%. And in the rest of the world, we have an interesting contact with international agencies of development and promotion of investment and export, and with other agencies in the world. And those are the green spaces here. So far, we have a schedule with the agents of New Zealand. And there we have a technology interested in having access to Brazil. Even being in Brazil physically, we were able to interact with different regions in the world. We even have challenges that we have treated with producers in Brazil, and the solution comes from Australia, from China, and this is more and more possible with this digitalization and things like this that occur nowadays. We have an expansion model from different levels, and we have a campus, a robust structure, 3,000 square meters. Many partners physically on a daily basis, and we already started the process of flag and garage in other environments where other partners environments are involved with our activities in our network. So there are 3 in Brazil. So and we can go very quickly to other regions in the world. The big question here is about creating a community that we call genuinely integrated, that we can create the same value that we created for an entrepreneur here, that we can create that for them in any region of the world, for them to have access to the same level of knowledge, level of investment, with access to regular programs of agriculture to correct them, and if possible, the model that we have already. We hope this model can be used in other regions, and we are really interested in next to ICA to develop this type of initiatives. So our team is growing, 44 people with different professional files really engage in this purpose. And the entrepreneurs will feed the world. The entrepreneur is not only as a startup, but the producer in our vision is an important entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs that are in large companies, as you can see here. So a brief overview about AgTech Garage. We remain available for questions at the end of the panel, because many questions may arise. This is a relatively new thing. It is not an incubator. It is not an accelerator. We have initiatives that at the end of the day accelerate this digital transformation. We believe in that a lot. Thanks to you, Jose, for your participation. As you recently said, we invite you to accompany us. And at the end of the panel, we're going to have the questions and answers. Probably there's going to be 0 questions by participants. So now we invite Scott Dave to join us. Scott, floor is yours. Hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak to the panel. I'm with Fall Line Capital, and I'll just get right into the presentation here. So we're a farmland investment company that is based in San Mateo near San Francisco, although half of our staff across the US in various field offices. We started in 2011. We created our first fund by the end of 2012 and purchased a farm in mid 2012. And at the time, we were focused only on farmland investment with a thesis around soil conservation, that we would buy farms, develop them, improve them, and then have local farmers manage them with soil conservation in mind. So our first fund was 95% farmland investment, 5% AgTech.
I'm sorry,
but
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but we are not seeing your PowerPoint presentation.
It says I'm screen sharing.
Can you try again?
Try this. Does that work?
No, not yet. Maybe if you try again now.
Is it working?
No, what we see is like a black screen. Yeah.
I've done this a few times. I
No, sure.
can't see. Do you want to pull up the presentation?
I think that you have to make. Okay, it's working now.
Okay, I never did anything. It just came on. Okay. So
Sorry.
it's working okay.
So go ahead. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So our first fund started in, well, essentially 2012 and was mostly focused on farmland. But because we're based essentially in the Silicon Valley, we kept being requests are drawn into AgTech opportunities. And so we were slowly getting exposed to our opportunities in startups that were based in the Bay Area. And it turned out to be a very distinct opportunity for us, because we were in kind of this rare situation where we had a farmland investment fund based in Silicon Valley. We're farmers ourselves, and we had this practical knowledge and experience to go along with evaluating and doing proper diligence on AgTech. So our second fund, which started in 2016 and was fully deployed in 2019, was about 70% farmland and 30% AgTech. And today we're getting close to closing 2 new funds, and one will be totally focused on AgTech, and the other one will be another farmland fund. So the AgTech part of our company has grown significantly. No, I can't get it. So we're a relatively small team. Like I mentioned, about half of us are based in the Bay Area at any one time. And there's a number of us. Joaquin here is from Argentina. I think he's actually dialed in today. Tiago's from Brazil. Mitch is from South America, and I'm from Canada. Julia and Baptiste from Europe. We're a very international group. We buy farmland only in the United States, but we can invest in technology anywhere. And I'll show you some of the tech that we focused on. Just as a summary from our perspective, AgTech is an extremely fast-growing sector. You know, about 16 billion was invested in 2020, a 27% increase each year over the last 8 years. You have dedicated AgTech funds like we've just created ourselves. You have mainstream venture interest in AgTech, and it's becoming an asset class that everybody's paying attention to. And then beyond the food production side of things, you have real environmental services and climate impact opportunities that are starting to be a part of the discussion when it comes to AgTech. From Fall Line's perspective, you know, we have direct farming technology and investment experience. I actually still farm in Canada. I kind of commute back and forth. One of our founding partners still farms on his farm in Iowa. And we have a large, diverse portfolio of farmland, which helps us evaluate and consider a lot of technologies. We have a lot of industry connections, and our portfolio in AgTech is you know, I'm new to this sort of venture capital world, but we're actually looking at 25 companies we've invested in the last 10 years, and they're all still alive, which is rare from a startup investment standpoint. So these are the four sectors that we're focused on. You know, biotech, and those are companies listed there that we've invested in. Software, which kind of gets to the digitalization of ag a little bit, hardware as well, and then food and nutrition. So one of the investment themes is novel crop protection. You have, you know, an $85 billion annual market in crop protection. We're going to, you know, we lose a lot of crop every year, no matter where you are, to pests, and you've got environmental issues, but also from a producer standpoint, resistance issues continue to mount. So we need more choices. We need more tools in the toolbox. And then there's a heightened regulatory and public scrutiny aspect of this as well. So we're focused in our investments on platforms instead of single products. And we try and leverage the recent advances in biotech, especially, you know, discoveries of new proteins and mapping proteins. And we've prioritized engineered biopesticides. So in this category, there's three companies that, you know, there's actually some more that we've invested in, but to highlight, there's Greenlight Biosystems, Pluton Biosciences, and MicroPep Technologies. And MicroPep, I don't have a slide, but we just closed the funding with them recently. They're based in France, and they're creating a new family of pest control products based entirely on peptides. So we have led the B round for Greenlight Bio, and they're producing RNA in high quality and low cost, and creating products that will be used in crop protection. Their first product is likely going to be a Colorado potato beetle control product. They went public in February with a very good success, and the opportunities here are incredible, not only just in crop protection, but also animal health and, you know, obviously human health as well. As we know, the importance of the COVID vaccine was an mRNA product as well. The beauty of these systems is they're incredibly effective on the target organism, but have virtually no impact on anything else. It's like you've created a weapon made of ice, and then it melts to water when you're done with it. You spray the product to kill potato beetles, for instance, and there'll be no
Se le
impact on
atomiza el
butterflies
producto
or
para
others.
matarla, pero no hay ningún impacto en las mariposas.
The Pluton Biosciences is a company that
Esta
is
es
looking
una,
at it's sorry, I have an echo here, but it's a microbial discovery platform for novel crop protection and also sustainable practices in ag. What they're doing is mining for discovery of microbes that do specific things and beneficial things. And one of the things they're looking at a microbial cover, a group of microbes that will fix nitrogen to some degree, but also sequester carbon. And this is obviously an exciting area. There's a lot of companies looking at microbes, but this company has a distinct advantage in our opinion. And you mentioned about what role do startups play in ag innovation, the digitization of ag. And this is a great example of a startup doing things that no other company could do. The scientists here, some of them had long careers with large ag crop protection companies. And there just wasn't the environment to develop something new within those large companies. And we're seeing this with the consolidation of all sorts of segments of the industry, the farm equipment side being consolidated, the crop pest protection industry being consolidated. You get these giant companies which can, facilitate certain types of innovation, but actually are not a great place for innovation that may create real change. And so the scientists here, they've been working on this, dreaming about this for years. But there wasn't the environment in where they were working before. Now they go out on their own, create their own company, and can do what they've always dreamt about. And us as a venture capital firm, what we bring, and venture capital in general, is we're a partner with these companies. We make a commitment to be with them as they grow. We often are helping them in field research or introduction to others within our network or the farmers we work with. This is something you don't get with other sources of money, such as a bank or even grants or awards. We're looking at the supply chain digitization. Agri-food supply chain startups raised $1.9 billion last year, an incredible amount. Online engagement is increasing dramatically. 50% of US farmers are willing now to buy inputs online, and I'm sure that's consistent with other countries. Regionalized marketplaces are gaining traction. So we've invested in Agrify, which is based in America, as well. And these are some of the examples of how we're taking advantage of what we think the supply chain digitization process is going to continue to evolve and become important. We've invested in this theme called advanced machinery. Last year, about just under 300 million in startup funding was put into advanced machinery, as we call it. Robots, retrofit kits, hardware as a service. The thesis is obviously labor augmentation or labor replacement, but also increased efficiency, decreasing cost of equipment. And you have these kind of specific things. You have decreased soil compaction and greater trafficability. So 3 companies that we've invested in that are an example of this are Guardian, which is a spraying drone made from the ground up as a spraying drone. Rantizo, which is a company that does swarming of drones. And then FarmWise, which is a robotic weeding company. And I put this up here just as a kind of an example of seeing. So FarmWise is the robot in the upper left. Carbon Robotics in the upper right is the robot that kills weeds with laser beams. And in the lower right is Nexus, which kills weeds with a mechanical hand that pulls them. These are all units that are well documented, working successfully in the Central Valley. But we're seeing all of them look towards the future of creating their systems to attach to a regular tractor. That you don't really, the big market isn't the autonomous aspect. The big market is putting it on existing farm equipment and making it work more efficiently, and have your top tractor drivers or implement drivers still working, still observing the field, but having the robotic aspect, the mechanical weeding working behind it, which I think is kind of interesting that many of the robotic companies are moving that way. The last one I'll mention is molecular farming. The recombinant protein market valued at 126 billion in 2020. You need more sustainable solutions as this increase for food consumption, food need grows. Also, other aspects as far as energy and pharmaceutical self-fermentation has its limitations. So we're looking at molecular farming. And so the 2 companies I have here is UCO and Mason. Mason is a company that's created a vaccine in corn so that when the corn is fed to, say, pigs, they become vaccinated against PED virus. You feed it to the sows in gestation, and the sows actually pass on the immunization to the piglets. It's a fascinating leap in technology. It's something that's been thought about for generations, but they have been able to do this through genetically modifying corn, and then the corn itself is just regular corn. You can put it in a grain bin, pull it out 10 years later, feed it to the pigs. It's still 100% vaccine without refrigeration. UCO is a company based in Israel that's taken the components of gluten in wheat and taken out what causes any sort of sensitivities to gluten. So people with celiac disease or gluten intolerance or gluten allergies can now eat products that have all the great features of gluten, but no longer have any impact in their health. They're also working on the last thing I'll mention in general is the carbon investment theme. There's nascent supply and demand, despite a lot of press to this. There's still a lot of variables and unknown. Key indicators will be what the USDA decides on how it's measured and what this means. I've been working on carbon credits as a no-till farmer in Western Canada for 25 years now. And it's coming around to the point that I think, we're going to see some solid opportunities in market, but it is something that still requires further evaluation. And technology for evaluating the carbon is probably the one that's getting the most attention. So I'll stop there and thank you very much.
Muchas gracias por la presentación.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Scott, could you please continue for a few minutes more with us? And after Brandon's presentation, we're going to a Q&A session. So thank you very much once again. I would like to offer the floor to Brandon Day, who is here with us in the room. Thank you very much for being here with us. And Brandon is the operations director of EOLab based in Missouri, United States. So once again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Ika, and all the team for the invitation to be here. Just for you all, before we get the presentation ready, I'm wearing two hats today. So in my normal role as CEO of the Yield Lab Institute, that's the nonprofit arm of the Yield Lab group, but we also have the venture arm, the Venture Global Federation of Funds you all are familiar with our LATAM team in Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. So excited to really walk you through how we operate as a group and kind of the activities that we do to drive forward global innovation from different regions and different activities. So to dive right into the Yield Lab Institute, we brand ourselves as a global AgTech think tank, agri-food think tank, think and do tank, if you will. And I would say we have two main brackets of activities that we roll out as an organization. One of which I would say first falls under the realm of thought leadership. We recognize that, beyond investing in individual startups and individual solutions that are really valuable and key to driving forward more value add, sustainable, efficient agriculture and food value chains, but there needs to be a holistic ecosystem approach. So part of what we do as a think tank is we do thought leadership activities like ecosystem assessment. So you can see we've done this type of work initially in Argentina, and then we followed up with another study of Piracicaba region in Brazil in 2019. So what we do when we do that is the deliverable is a white paper that maps all the ecosystem activity there. So we map everything from the startups to the investors to strategics, everybody who's playing a part in moving forward global AgTech innovation in different regions or geographies or cities. So to kind of highlight a little bit of the publications that we've done, you can see on the left there the initial study that we did in Rosario, Argentina, Foundations for AgTech Ecosystems. It was a methodology that we have developed and refined and iterated since we did that work initially in 2018, and we followed up with mapping the Piracicaba region in Brazil in 2019. And actually now we're using that same methodology to map ecosystems in different countries in Africa. So we started this work with the FAO in East Africa in 2020 during COVID, and virtually met with and interviewed a variety of different stakeholders in the individual countries. So we started with Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and all of this is part of the FAO's Global Digital Readiness Initiative to be more supportive of AgTech startups, entrepreneurs, and the ecosystem here in the country. So what resulted, out of that is a white paper that we will publish, and it's actually going to be used as a reference document for the FAO's State of Food and Agriculture annual publication. So this will be a reference document that they use to make policy recommendations to their government and regional partners on the continent. And so now actually we're doing a follow-up assessment in West Africa. So this year we're mapping 3 countries in West Africa, Senegal, Ghana, and Nigeria, specifically around digital readiness, AgTech solutions, moving forward more innovation. And are there things not only in the startup and innovation world that we play a role in, but also from a policy perspective? Can the FAO and its partners do things from a policy perspective that can be more supportive and get out of the way of the startups, if you will, and help them drive forward more solutions? So I would say, like I said, is the Institute has 2 main buckets of activities, which is the thought leadership, which is where those technical studies and ecosystems fall under. But the other bucket of activities are these open innovation challenges. And so those are things that are similar to what a lot of the startups in the room here have participated in, where they're accelerator programs structured 6 to 9 months, 9 to 12 months, where we work with you all and pair individual startups with a mentor. And if you need business support, technical support, or a variety of other resources, we try to put you through a structured program. And at the end, you get the opportunity as a startup to compete for some non-dilutive capital and some in-kind services and other rewards. So because we're a nonprofit, unlike the funds, we don't make any investments. We don't take any equity in startups like you all, but we do have the ability through sponsorship to award you some non-dilutive cash. So some cash to give you some runway or some capital to work with, right, at whatever stage you are. Because we recognize for the Yield Lab Group, our model is, beyond writing checks and giving you capital, but there's also value add and access to our global network of food and ag strategics, a lot of which are former executives at a lot of the big food and ag folks that you all know. So, and that knowledge and that access in them is probably in some cases more valuable than the check itself. So we recognize that that's of keen interest to you all as startups. Just to kind of highlight some of the challenges you're looking at there. So we've run 4 challenges so far for the Institute. So, and they differ in a variety of different scope, technology, and region. So for example, the Soy Innovation Challenge that was launched in concert with the United Soybean Board, which is the U.S. farmer checkoff organization funded by proceeds of sales from every bushel of soy that's sold by U.S. farmers. So they were keenly interested in wanting to drive forward more innovations that bring value back to the soy farmer. And so what we did is did an open call for startups. And so in that case, we received about 90 global applicants and ultimately down selected to a group of 7 startups that we worked with and put them through the programmatic challenge. In the case of the Sustainable AgTech Challenge, which is of relevance to the folks in the region, that one was done with UNEP as part of moving forward more sustainable innovation for the Latin American and the Caribbean region. So part of that was trying to engage UNEP, and can there be innovation that move forward more sustainable value add, agriculture and food value chains, and can innovation technology play a role in doing that? And can we be more supportive of providing access to resources, and also being a part of what was interesting about that challenge is actually had a bolt-on white paper policy assessment. So again, it overlapped with our thought leadership activities, where we recognize that working with a handful of startups is important, but beyond that, there's also some lessons that we can learn from them and from the other applicants as far to better inform our government and our regional partners in the region from a policy perspective. So in the case of that challenge, we actually received about 110 applicants. And we worked with about 8, one of which is Danilo and BloomsPal was a part of the finalist cohort for that challenge. And so in the fourth and the final challenge over on the right is the Sustainable Aquaculture Challenge. I know we've just heard from our friend Fresa in there. So that one was focused on the aquaculture value chain, and can more digital solutions drive forward more value to stakeholders, and can value be evenly distributed and evenly shared. So you'll see from that challenge, we had a variety of different regional partners for that. I'll get into that here in the next few slides. Just to kind of give you some stats on the 4 challenges that we've been able to run so far. So from those 4 challenges, we've been able to generate over 450 applicants out of the challenges, from 65 or so for the manure challenge, 90 for soy, 110 from the Sustainable AgTech Challenge, and 180 from the aquaculture challenge. And so ultimately what we do is when we recognize that we can't work with all of these startups, we try to target a cohort of 6 to 8. 6 to 8 is a good group for us to work with startups that we think we can provide some really good value. And it doesn't get so big that it's hard to manage for us, and that we don't evenly give our time and our resources to all the startups. And so what the startups, like I said, get from the benefit of the challenge is, one, they get the network access to our network. 2, they get to compete for some non-dilutive capital. But in some cases, they get in-kind services. So for example, with the Sustainable AgTech Challenge, that one was done in sponsorship with Amazon Web Services. So they weren't able to give cash as prizes, but they gave in-kind cloud computing and technical service credits. So for some of you digital ag startups in the room, that is probably of value, or even more value than writing a check or some cash. So, and this slide here just kind of gives you an outline of the different public and private sector partners that were a part of each of the different challenges. So because we're a nonprofit, we have the ability and flexibility to not only work with the private sector, but also the public sector. So USB, in the case of the soy challenge, is a publicly funded farmer organization. UNEP, you all are familiar with them. And then USEC is the US Soy Export Council organization that's mission is trying to move forward and brand US soy to export markets. So, and you can see from the different variety of regional partners. In the case of the aquaculture challenge, we had strategics and partners from the Middle East, from Latin America. You can see in Salmon Sustainable, and then from the Asia Pacific region and Enterprise Singapore, among others. So quite a wide variety of different partners and strategics that we know well and we work well with within the context of these open innovation challenges. And this is a brief overview of the startups that we selected for each of the finalist cohorts. So you can see on the top line, a lot of those are US-based startups that work in the manure space, one of which actually is a European startup, Into Applied. In the soy challenge, quite a few of those are US-based as well, but you can see in the Sustainable AgTech Challenge that those are primarily from the Latin America and the Caribbean region. I believe quite a few of the startups from Sustainable AgTech Challenge are from Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and then we also have some Central America representation with Clearleaf, who's based here out of Costa Rica. So you'll see, later when I walk you through the opportunity for these open innovation challenges, we think there's a great opportunity to drive forward some deal flow in some of the other Latin American, Caribbean regions and nations where lately it's been pretty top heavy, but I'll get into the details of that later. This kind of gives you an overview of our board, because we're a nonprofit. We have a board that governs us and monitors what we do. And the board has a representative from each of the different funds for the Yield Lab. So we have a Latin American representative who is Tomas. You probably have all familiar with him and know him real well. We have Paul Finnerty, who's from the Yield Lab Europe office in Ireland. He's been around. He's been with our group from the very beginning, raising our initial fund. Larry Taylor is our founder and principal from the Yield Lab Asia Pacific Fund based in Singapore. And to round out the rest of the board is really a diverse group, I would say, of folks from farming, ranching, plant science, genetics, agronomy, operations. And in fact, we have Chris Handel there on the bottom left, who's a former operator and founder of one of our startups that we've invested in, the North America Fund, CoverCress. So it's quite a diverse group of folks that govern our board, and they give us a lot of, I think, access to partners and startups like yourselves, and give us, I think, a key lens of expertise that we can provide to startups beyond competitions and cash and other kind of resources. It's access to folks like this who've built startups, who've been a part of startups and understand what it takes for AgTech, because the path is not linear. As you all know, it's very, very different for a different startup, from a digital ag startup to a crop science startup. And so they understand that. And I think that's of tremendous value that we try to provide to our variety of our startups. And to round out the leadership, so I sit at the helm of the Yield Lab Institute with the board chairman, Thad Simons, who's also the co-founder of both the Yield Lab and the Yield Lab Institute. So he's a seasoned food and ag executive, former CEO of Novus International, which is a methionine business in the poultry industry. He founded the Yield Lab in 2014, initially with the North America Fund, then Europe, Latin America, and Asia Pacific. So to get more into the meat of the conversation we're having here today, which is about digital ag and the digital ag opportunity that we think is represented in Latin America and the Caribbean. We're of strong opinion. If you talk to Tomas about this, there's an enormous amount of innovation coming out of Latin America. It's probably top heavy from Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and a lot of the bigger nations, but we think that there's a tremendous other opportunity for the other nations, other regions in the Americas to represent what we think are really some innovative solutions that have adaptability and scalability into North America or other global markets. To kind of summarize that whole value proposition, we think there's a big transformation coming. It's here. And that's why, at the Yield Lab, we've oriented our funds to try to be a very early stage venture capital fund and providing that patient, strategic, but also focused capital and resources for these startups to get to where they need to go. So right now we're currently raising a $50 million venture capital fund that we're actively deploying capital to early stage startups from everything from pre-seed, seed to Series A. So I know that a handful of you startups in the room are at that stage. So that's the type of deal flow and technologies that we're looking at to invest in right now. To give you a breakdown, as you all probably know, you've probably seen a map that's a version like this. This tells you quite a big story and tells you, I think, two key stories. You can see we've mapped over 1,300 startups, half of which we've reviewed or either done due diligence for review for investment. But that grows, and that's growing actively, as Tomas tells me all the time. But I think that the two stories that this diagram really tells you is, one, it's pretty top heavy for the region. There's a lot of startups coming out of the big three. I call them the big three: Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's opportunity for other countries and other AgTech ecosystems to kind of flourish and come to the forefront. The second story that I think this map tells you is that there's an enormous opportunity for Central America and the Caribbean to be represented in terms of our deal flow there. You can see that's a big difference in numbers from Mexico and Central America and from the other regions. So I think there's a ton of opportunity, especially in specialty crops that have applications to North America and obviously the West Coast, where they share a lot of the same production agriculture systems and a lot of the same, I would say, challenges with water, access to resources, capital, among other things. So there's just a big, I think, opportunity for us, and we're keenly interested in technologies in that region to invest in for our Latin America fund. To give you kind of a breakdown of the different technologies, you can see that the technologies really they are heavily, I would say, favored on the farm gate, if you will, stage. So that's everything from inputs to crop science, genetics, management, equipment, and even a number of different kind of solutions that are right there at the farm that the farmer can touch, feel, or implement. We think there's a lot of deal flow. That's what a lot of the deal flow that we see currently from our funds. But then if you look also beyond that, there's I think a even larger opportunity beyond the gate, where you're looking at solutions like I've heard today from traceability, blockchain. How do you validate that things are done sustainably? Where are you getting your inputs? Where are you? Can you validate that the pig that you fed on your farm in Argentina had soy from a non-deforested region, or any of a number of different things that the consumer is driving forward a lot of this change. And that's where I think there's an enormous opportunity for solutions to provide that kind of value proposition, right? It's of keen interest, and it's always, as you all know, as founders, being driven from the consumer. The consumer wants to know where their food's coming from, how it's sourced, how it's harvested, how it's grown. Is it done ethically? Is it done safely? And as you all know, the value chains in different crops or different countries or different ecosystems are very complicated and convoluted for a lot of different reasons. And that's where I think a lot of startups that are in this room can provide really interesting value and solutions. But you've got to solve that problem, right? And if you solve that problem, and that's where you start to open the eyeballs of funds like us, and you start to have that potential for scalability globally, right? Where you become a really a key player, a key strategic, where a lot of the food and ag giants start to pay attention to you, and they might think about acquiring you, right? So, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing to have as a startup. I'll give you a breakdown of just kind of the disruption vectors that we're particularly focused on in the region. You can see a lot of them hit with the same themes of the startups that we're talking to today: water as an asset, carbon markets, sustainable ag. But again, trying to find what does that mean, sustainable ag, digital enablers, digitally enabling connections on the value chain. How does that make sense? And how do you make sense of all the data associated with that for the farmer, for the producer, for the rancher, for the consumer. That's of keen value, right? That's of keen, because we all talk about access to data, and data is great, but data is only as valuable as the insights it generates, right? And so that's where startups and innovations like yourselves can provide value. Fintech for ag, we see a ton of deal flow globally in fintech, pure fintech. I think there's a great opportunity for fintech solutions in ag. Access to financial instruments, products, resources, capital for farmers to buy their next piece of equipment or whatever that is, right? That's an enormous obstacle to overcome for the food and ag value chain. Is financial instruments are currently not just constructed to accommodate what is going on in food and ag, and that's where you all can provide an interesting solution. And novel ingredients, as you all know, there's a ton of hype and a ton of venture dollars going into alternative proteins, plant-based proteins, among other things. That's an interest and a key opportunity. I would say if you talk to our partners, probably in the Yield Lab, they would probably, I would say, are a little contrarian like me. I think there's an enormous opportunity for animal protein, the real animal protein. I think that's not going to go away. That demand is not going to go away, nor are the solutions for it to be more sustainably raised and grown and processed and produced. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity for startups to provide value in that sector. So, and we're keenly interested in that, of course, in the Americas. And so just kind of to give you a breakdown of the Yield Lab LATAM, and you probably have seen a variation of this, from other pitch decks. But, we started in 2017 as a small accelerator fund, focused on, again, early stage startups and investments. Initially with our opening office in Argentina, and now we've opened offices in Brazil, Chile, and now actually we've just opened and we're going to have a presence in Mexico. So we're trying to have a presence in all the key regions and areas in the Americas, Central America, Caribbean, and South America as well. And so it's of keenly focus, as you all know, to have boots on the ground there, to have people who know these startups, who know you all, and can validate that, right? That's a key activity for us. It's to know what you're doing, to make sure that what you're doing is that the right market fit, is the right customer fit, and is there something that we can do and can provide access to help you to all scale and grow. And to give you kind of a high level, overview of the investments that we've made, you probably have seen a few of these startups, and you probably recognize a lot of these names. So they vary in variety from a startup like UCrop out of Argentina. That's a blockchain traceability solution that tells as they say, the agronomy story for the farmer, and helps that as a way to validate, financial services and credits. Or you have a startup like in the middle there, Circular, who's a startup based out of Argentina that's looking at supply chain logistics for trucks, the trucking system for ag and agriculture, transport and commodities. And there's a variety of other, startups out there like AOA Argentina, which is a digital solution that can provide a way to aggregate data from not just a clipboard or a piece of paper, but also from your laptop, from your mobile phone, and aggregate that into insights that are valuable and actionable to farmers and producers. So a wide variety of different startups that we've invested in and continue to invest in different technology verticals. So, we're excited, and we think there's enormous potential, for the Latin America and the Caribbean region. And that's why we're expanding our presence and our folks on the ground to get in front of our startups like yourselves that we think are of keen interest, and we can hopefully provide some strategic capital as well as strategic support. So, and that kind of just breaks down, what the different sectors that we invest in of focus that we look at. Our model at the Yield Lab is we're very picky about the startups we work with and invest in. And we're picky because we don't believe in the fail fast model. We believe in fail slow, do it slow and methodical, scale within your home market, and scale globally. We understand that, if you're working if you're at the mercy of a planting and a harvesting season, we can't speed up technology to do that unless you figure out a way how to control Mother Nature. I don't know how to do that. If you do, let me know. I'll invest in your startup to do that. But we understand that, AgTech, the solutions and startups are very different. It's a very different path for an animal, swine vaccine, for a crop science solution, or for a traceability software SaaS solution. We understand that the path is different, the model is different, and therefore the financing and the investment has to be different. And that's I think that differentiates us from other AgTech early stage venture firms. So I believe that is that is it. That is all I have for you all. Thank you again for the opportunity to chat with you about the Yield Lab and the Yield Lab Institute.
Thank you, Brandon. So it is the questions time. We have Jose. Jose has to leave very quickly. So first of all, we want to thank you and ask you a question, final questions, in line with the 15 startups that are here participating and that are looking at you, as well as from others that are looking from other parts of the world. And in first place, how can they get in touch with you? But as you are seeing the possibility and the framework, everything you tell us, this linkage possibility of the ecosystem is moving forward. How can they get in touch with you? Thank you once again for the question. Both in Brazil and Latin America, in Brazil, we have a program which is a membership. We have the startups that are not located in Brazil, but that are benefited, and they start having contact with partners, and that may be a way to go. And then to enter into a website to establish a contact. I perceive something that nowadays is not necessary to come and to set up a structure, technology to be sure if technology will work. Companies have arrived with a high level of connectivity with partners, customers, something function already running, and with that there is a structure with less risk. Thank you, Jose. With that, I want to thank for your participation and to leave you your free time because we know you have a complicated agenda. So from ICA, those who are participating in organization of Digital Week and the startups of the different countries of the continent participating and those who are connected, we thank you a lot and we hope we can keep in touch and having support for this line of work. Thank you. Now, Brandon, Scott, let's move to questions. So I leave this time open for the participants who would like to ask a question for the other speakers.
I have several questions, but is the nonprofit the bridge to the for-profit fund? Is that how you prepare?
It can be. Yeah, I forgot to mention that in a few examples of startups that have participated in Open Innovation Challenge have actually received a follow-on investment. So let's see, about three or four have received follow-on investment, one from North America, one from Europe. And actually in the case of UCropIt, they were a startup. I think they were simultaneously getting an investment from our Latin America fund as well as participating in our challenge. So it can be. It's one path. But we also do invest in startups outside of the context of the Open Innovation Challenges. The challenges just allows us as a way to source deal flow in specific niches like aquaculture, et cetera, right? So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Robert, you have the floor. My question for Brandon is if these processes are always open to receive applications, or what are the mechanisms? If you could, would like to know a little bit more about the offices that you have in the territories.
So basically, the application process is continuous open, or there are some key moments?
Yes, yeah, it's continuously open and rolling. It's all dependent upon our fund, what capital we have available to deploy. So I do know right now we are actively finalizing a few investors for our Yield Latin America fund. I can't say the names of, they're rather large organizations you will be familiar with. But as soon as that closes, I believe they're going to have quite a bit of capital to deploy in the next 6 to 12 months. So yes, so it's rolling. It's rolling based on the funds we raise and where we're looking at. So.
Gracias, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. Any other questions from the participants?
Maybe a small comment regarding that. One of the things that we've been discussing with the teams, especially those who use hardware, is that the funds needs growth, but then we need funding to get the growth because we need to buy the hardware or build our product. So I'm seeing the Yield Lab Institute as an opportunity in order to get that initial funding to get the growth or the money enough to get the hardware, and then maybe get the interest of the Yield Lab with an investors. Do you see it that way? Oh.
We do. That's actually a good point. Where, it sounds like in your case, you probably need a little bit of, I would say, probably research grant or grant award type of funding, if you will. And maybe it's not for research activities, but it's similar to that, where it's not a perfect model or fit for a fund, right? So the Institute does have the ability and has mechanisms to do that, like I said, within the context of challenges or individual programs or initiatives that we work with. So there is opportunity for funding there as well. It depends on our ability to fundraise and where we have our partners. So if it's of a particular interest of a solution that you're developing, then it might be a fit. But yes, so the Institute can be a lever for that type of funding outside of the context of a venture fund.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have here next to me a question for Scott. Scott, are you still there? If you are, I would like to ask you what type of startups do you support? In general, those that I saw are quite advanced and big ones. So I wonder if you pay attention to, or if you make any kind of investment, a small investment for entrepreneurs that are in initial instances.
Yeah, when we started, like I mentioned, we were focused on farmland, and the ones that we were invited to be a part of were already somewhat established. So you'll see on the list, there are some startups that have grown to be substantial companies. But as we've learned more about the space and this current new fund for AgTech, we want to focus on early stage. So pre-seed, seed rounds, and A rounds. That's what we like to focus on with the money that we have to deploy now. We're going to be looking at 15% ownership and a board seat as well. We feel we can be a strategic investor. We're not going to be passive. We want to be involved in how the company is, expands, how it does its diligence, how it does its research. And so those are some of the criteria that we've put on our future investments is early stage to seed or pre-seed to an A round. And with that, the check size is usually, in that $2 to $6-7 million range. And we have the ability to go beyond that or go into a Series B or a Series C if we find it compelling. But for now, we're looking for young startups that have really great potential.
Gracias.
Thank you, Scott. Any other question? If not, can you give us the contact information? So people wonder if you can give your contact information to link it to them. So your contact information.
Yeah, I see while I was giving the presentation, I had 3 LinkedIn requests that I think came from the group. So that's nice. My contact info, we have a pretty, we have a new revamped website, but the best way is just to contact me directly. And my email address was at the end of my presentation, but it's Scott, SCOTT @falllinecap.com. So I'm sure Carlos could share it with the group, or that's the best way to contact Fall Line. Like I said, we're a small team. We work together on virtually everything, the farmland and the AgTech. So contacting me, you're contacting the whole team.
Okay.
Gracias.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I believe that here we close the round of questions. So as I told Jose and Scott and Brandon, on behalf of ICA and the organization and all of us present here, thank you so much. Very interesting, and I hope this is going to be the starting point of an exchange among all of us to pursue the goal, which is to empower the AgTech system in the continent in the Americas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my contact information was just shared on the chat window, so you all should have it if you were on the PowerPoint or on the system. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the session, and I'll try and get seating here this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we conclude this morning's journey of the third day of the Digital Agriculture Week.
Recording stopped.